Prologue. 17 years ago, some 360 kilometers from French Guiana, lies Isla St. Hubert, a secret facility where InGen scientists experiment on dinosaurs. A helicopter lands. Inside the facility, white-suited scientists work beneath a tank containing a Mutodon, a hybrid of the Velociraptor and a Pteranodon. The camera pans down and... wait, I'm sorry, what? You gave raptors wings? The camera pans down and... I'm sorry, really? You gave raptors wings? Holy fucking shit, these people are so stupid. The camera pans down and a scientist eating a Snickers bar approaches a security door. A sign on the wall reads T-Rex. He fumbles with his Snickers bar as he tries to fetch a key and the wrapper falls to the ground. The door requires two-way authentication, the simultaneous turning of two keys. Whatever's in this facility requires the highest level of security and scientific sterility. The door opens. The camera returns to the Snickers wrapper. As the door closes again, the Snickers is sucked into a vent. It causes a spark. The door grinds to a halt. Back in the control room, a computer blinks to life. Containment failure. Security disabled. System error. As alarms begin to sound throughout the facility, the scientists frantically run out of the T-Rex compound, but one of them is too late. The door slides closed, and the man who likes Snickers is trapped on the wrong side. He and his scientist friend begin to time their key insertions, but his friend looks over his shoulder and she stops. She sees something. She removes her key. She knows it is already too late. A dark shape looms over the trapped scientist. There are teeth in the reflection of the glass. The scientist begs for his life, but there is nothing to be done. A clawed hand hoists him effortlessly into the air, pulls him back into the red mist, and to the desperate screams of his friend, he dies. With him goes any hope for a good movie. That was all retarded. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jurassic World Afterbirth. Are you tired of doctors, scientists, and medical professionals dropping candy wrappers on the floor and inadvertently triggering the collapse of park-wide security systems that let mutant dinosaurs free, resulting in the deaths of yourself and your co-workers? Well, that's where today's video sponsor Zocdoc comes in. Zocdoc is a free online marketplace where you can search, compare, and book appointments with more than 100,000 healthcare providers covering pretty much any ailment you're likely to have. Mental health, dental health, eye care, skin care, being disemboweled by a velociraptor, Zocdoc will help you find someone to fix you. I, for example, am English, and so my childhood was one long traumatic visit to an NHS dentist. Now I am looking to repair the damage done. Being as I am now older and wiser, I know that finding the right dentist is better than finding the cheapest one. That is where Zocdoc can help. Zocdoc lets you filter for doctors who'll take your insurance who are located nearby. Your typical Zocdoc appointment will get you in a 24 to 72 hour window, and many providers will even offer same-day appointments. With Zocdoc, an appointment is just a few clicks away. Don't settle for InGen standards of medical professionalism. Zocdoc empowers you to choose the very best in healthcare professionals. And the best bit about it is, it's free. You can take a look today at my link, Zocdoc.com/Little Platoon, or by clicking through to my description. Thank you to Zocdoc for sponsoring this video today. Now back to the video.
I've done it, Kevin. I've successfully gene-spliced this chipmunk with a piece of provolone cheese. Do you know what this means, Kevin? No more will the world have to look in two different places for squirrels and provolone cheese. No more will mankind have to pick. Who could that be?
Depending on how you look at it, the original Jurassic Park is one of the most and one of the least successful stories ever told. On the one hand, Michael Crichton's novel has sold some 200 million copies, being translated into around 38 languages. The movie adaptation grossed almost $2 billion adjusted for inflation. It is at or near the top of many people's lists of favorite stories, and understandably so. I was a tiny tiny baby when the movie released, but it's captured the minds of several generations. On the other hand, Jurassic Park can be said to be one of the least successful stories ever told, precisely because so many people are familiar with it, but so few people really seem to know it. It has a clear and unambiguous message, and the history of the world since its publication is proof that that message has not been heeded. If you tell a story, if your story is designed to teach people some fundamental lesson, if that story becomes one of the most instantly recognizable properties in the world, but the world does not heed its message, then the writer, or perhaps his audience, has failed in an important way. At a push, you might get someone to say that the theme of Jurassic Park is the perils of science. It's a story about science gone wrong. This is one of those expressions you might expect to read in a kid's book report. It sounds grand, it says little, and what little it does say is a misapprehension. Jurassic Park is not a story about the failures of science. Jurassic Park is a story about the failures of humans. Specifically, it is a story about overconfidence, hubris, the fantasy of systemic control by humans over science itself. The science behind Jurassic Park does not go wrong. The scientists and engineers do not understand what right is supposed to look like. The park's failure is the product of bad assumptions. The problem of false assumptions, that is, not the dangers of science, but the dangers of humans assuming that their partial knowledge of science is total, that is a constant across Crichton's bibliography. In The Andromeda Strain, Crichton's first bestseller, published under his own name in 1969, a deadly extraterrestrial microorganism is brought back to Earth by an experimental satellite as part of the Scoop program. When the satellite lands outside a small town and is recovered by the residents, it causes mass death by instantaneous blood clotting. A team of scientists is called in as part of the Wildfire Protocol. They take the satellite and the organism into a subterranean facility for experimentation. The story explains at great length the various procedures and quarantine measures in place to prevent contamination. Nobody in the story is an idiot. Everybody is a professional, and Crichton's great gift for dramatizing the scientific method is on full display. The scientists do not make mistakes in the Andromeda Strain, but the Wildfire Protocol is built with bad assumptions. Designed to contain traditional biological contaminants, its quarantine procedures are not only incapable of containing a totally new form of microorganism, they almost enable something much worse. The final quarantine measure is a controlled nuclear detonation, assumed to be totally effective against all biological matter as we understand it. But the scientists realize just before it's too late that the Andromeda Strain is able to create matter directly from energy. If the nuclear fallback is triggered, which it will be automatically if certain failure states are detected, it would have the opposite of the intended effect. This most deadly organism would be turbocharged and released back onto the surface. At this point in the story, the drama shifts from preventing the Andromeda Strain to preventing the cure, a process made much more difficult by a mistake in the design of the wildfire station. The scientists are only just successful in their endeavor. The Andromeda Strain, in effect, cures itself. A rapidly evolving microbe, it mutates into a benign form and the threat is averted. In short, the ostensible disaster is no such thing. It's damaging, but if left alone, nature would have taken care of it. The attempt to control it was the real disaster. A brilliantly designed scientific station following all the rules, staffed with competent people, applying the lessons of known science might inadvertently have ended the world, and all because it was designed with the assumption that the contaminant was a known biological entity. When assumptions are tested by an unknown scientific phenomenon, they not only fail, they risk disaster. It's not a failure of science, it's a failure of human assumptions about science. The beware what you don't know theme is present across many of his subsequent books, and the plot formula broadly tracks across them. Grand scientific premise seems watertight, is undermined by bad assumptions, compounded by human error in some relatively minor role, administrative, technological, technological, engineering, and so on. In The Terminal Man, a violent patient is given an experimental brain implant designed to cure violent outbursts that occur during seizures brought on by psychomotor epilepsy. The implanted device stimulates the brain when it detects an impending seizure. The assumption is flawed because pleasure is addicting, and the man learns to induce his seizures to prompt the implants, reversing the intended effect. The compounding clerical error is that a nurse forgets to prescribe a compensating dose of thorazine. The patient then escapes and attacks several more people. So, another attempt at a systemic cure suffers a cascade failure because of faulty assumptions. And it goes on, because Crichton was so prolific and so popular. The problem in Sphere is not scientific but human. Entering the Sphere grants a kind of psychic power that leads to childhood fears becoming manifest in the world. In Disclosure, a powerful female executive's attempt to cover up her sexual assault of a male colleague is undone by faults in a data visualization device that she created when she changed quality control procedures in a Malaysian factory to try and appease the local government. Michael Crichton created Westworld, a Jurassic Park-like creation undone by flawed assumptions about the coding in and safeguards governing the lifelike androids. In Airframe, an airplane disaster initially blamed on technology transpires to be the result of human error overcorrecting a system that would have worked but for bad assumptions in its design. In State of Fear, probably Crichton's most controversial novel because it's A, his most polemical, B, polemical at the expense of the art, and C, it targets environmentalism, the system is environmental science itself, and the flaw is the human terrorists who manipulate the public's ignorance about that system through increasingly fantastical environmental terror attacks. Common to all these stories is, number one, the targeting of a current zeitgeist issue, usually some emergent technology, sometimes a cultural zeitgeist issue. Number two, a clear and methodical description of systems designed by humans to produce a desired outcome. Number three, the degradation of those systems by a series of unforeseen events, particularly number four, human error and/or sabotage, and/or a misalignment of systemic assumptions with reality. Finally, number five, a Crichton self-insert character who exposits what's happening clearly and at length. In all these stories, science generally works. Systems generally do not, because they impose artificial constraints predicated on imperfect scientific or psychological knowledge. The weak link in any system, scientific, legal, psychological, technical, is the humans who create and manage it. Bad information is the real killer, because it leads to incorrect expectations, and so the systems we design to manage reality come into conflict with reality itself.
But the shock that I had experienced reverberated in me for a while, because what I'd been led to believe about Chernobyl was not merely wrong, it was astonishingly wrong. Let's review that for a minute. These are the low estimates of immediate Chernobyl deaths as a consequence of the actual incident. And you see here the UPI in 1986, at the time of the disaster, predicted that there would be 2,000 immediate deaths. The New York Post thought there would be 16,000. The Canadian Broadcasting Company in 91 thought there would be that many. And you see the BBC and the New York Times in 2002 predicting at the low end 15,000 deaths. Their estimates were 15,000 to 30,000 deaths. Now, there was a UN commission in 2000 that suggested that the catastrophe was nowhere near that proportion. And as you can see, the next UN commission in 2005 doesn't really show up on the graph because the total numbers are 56. To report that 15 to 30,000 people are dead when the actual number is 56 represents a very large error. Yeah. It seems difficult to make a mistake of that scale. But of course, you're probably thinking we're talking about radiation, but about long-term consequences. Unfortunately for the media, their reports are even less accurate here. Here you see CNN in 1996 was predicting future Chernobyl-related illnesses and death in a large swath that would go from Sweden to the Baltic, to the Black Sea, estimating 3.5 million. The BBC, much more conservatively, estimated 50,000. Agence Presse thought 500,000. The Ukrainian Victims Group in 2002 estimated 150,000. The UN Commission in 2005 decided that there would be about 4,000. That's the number of Americans who die of adverse drug reactions in this country every 6 weeks. Again, a huge error. But most troubling of all, according to the UN report, was that the largest public health problem created by the accident was the damaging psychological impact due to a lack of accurate information. This was manifesting, as they said, as negative self-assessments of health, belief in a shortened life expectancy, lack of initiative, and dependency on assistance from the state. In other words, the greatest damage to the people of Chernobyl was caused by bad information. These people weren't blighted by radiation so much as by terrifying but false information. We ought to ponder for a minute exactly what that implies. We demand strict controls on radiation because it's such a health hazard. But clearly, Chernobyl suggests that false information can be a health hazard as damaging as radiation. I'm not saying that radiation is not a threat. I'm also not saying that Chernobyl is not a genuinely serious event. But thousands of Ukrainians who didn't die were made invalids out of fear. They were told to be afraid. They were told they were going to die when they weren't. They were told their children would be deformed when they weren't. They were told they couldn't have children when they could. They were authoritatively promised a future of cancer, deformities, pain, and decay. It's no wonder they responded as they did. In fact, we really need to recognize that this kind of human response is very well documented. Authoritatively telling people they are going to die can in itself be fatal.
Clarity was one of Crichton's great strengths as a writer, but it was achieved by a trade-off in which character was usually sacrificed. You can stick a Crichton character from one of his books into pretty much any other one of his books, and nothing much of the story would change.
In writing, I have always felt that I don't really understand why people do what they do. I really don't. So that...
Or don't do what they should do.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always doing an external kind of description. All I feel comfortable with is what happens. I'm very uncertain about the inner life or motivations, because I think that's all.
All what?
Well, it's either fantasy or it's ex post facto rationalization or... You know, certainly I've gotten into certain kinds of situations or certain things have happened to me that have upset me. And later I think, why did you do that? How did you get... Why did you walk into that room? Why did you say that to that?
Yeah, me too.
I don't have a good explanation.
The stereotypical Michael Crichton character is Michael Crichton, a middle-class, matter-of-fact, understated professional who delivers fascinating information dryly. Their personality is so unimportant to the story that he often didn't bother giving them one. Sometimes the narrator will tell you how you're supposed to regard the character. For example, from the Jurassic Park novel, Lewis Dodgson.
Dodgson! We've got Dodgson here!
And I quote, "Depending on who you talked to, Lewis Dodgson was famous as the most aggressive geneticist of his generation or the most reckless." And Ian Malcolm from the same book. Ian Malcolm was one of the most famous of the new generation of mathematicians who were openly interested in how the real world works. These scholars broke with the cloistered tradition of mathematics in several important ways. For one thing, they used computers constantly, a practice traditional mathematicians frowned on. For another, they worked almost exclusively with non-linear equations in the emerging field called chaos theory. For a third, they appeared to care that their mathematics described something that actually existed in the real world. And finally, as if to emphasize their emergence from academia into the world, they dressed and spoke with what one senior mathematician called a deplorable excess of personality. In fact, they often behaved like rock stars. But this isn't really character, in that it doesn't translate very often into the text. It's really just flavoring. If a Crichton character is described as aggressive and reckless, then he is probably a villain, even if he's never aggressive or reckless in the story. If a character is described as a rock star, he is probably Michael Crichton's self-insert character. It doesn't mean he presents as a rock star in the text, it means he has unorthodox opinions that turn out to be correct. Sometimes the narrative will portray a character one way but treat them the opposite. I can't imagine why footage of John Walker is currently scrolling across your screen. In Jurassic Park the novel, Donald Gennaro, the lawyer, survives the story, and in fact he's presented as kind of a hero. He consistently volunteers to help with perilous tasks, putting himself in danger again and again, such as when he volunteers to accompany Muldoon to tranquilize the escaped Tyrannosaurus, or when he goes into the raptor-infested sub-basement to try and turn on the power. But the book treats him as though he hasn't done these things, and toward the close he is harshly criticized by Alan Grant for being a useless, money-grubbing coward. But this is because Crichton characters are primarily instrumental. Gennaro is in scenes to interrupt lengthy exposition, usually by Ian Malcolm, which, by the way, is a trick you should probably avoid. If your character has been speaking for 2 pages, you can have him say, "Do you follow?" and have his interlocutor say, "Not really," to excuse a further 2 pages of monologue. But ideally you don't do that if your goal is to have your characters drive your story, rather than merely exposit a foreordained systemic failure in which they've been swept up. Because this is Gennaro's lot in the book, he is there so other things can happen, he is there so other things can be said, his actions and demonstrated values are essentially ignored by the writer, because they aren't the things that motivate his character. What motivates his character is the writer's need for him to be in the scene. The advantage to this approach, though, is that you can get away with monologuing, which is what gives Crichton's books their admirable clarity. The ideas are fascinating. The characters are only there as an excuse to transmit them, but where your point is to make a point, well, there are worse approaches to adopt. Characters can get confusing. Relationship drama doesn't always tell you very much about science. Jurassic Park the movie is much superior as a work of art to Jurassic Park the book in terms of its well-rounded balance of the 4 essential elements: plot, character, world building, and theme. But here, the trade-off entails a sacrifice in the other direction. Where Michael Crichton sacrificed character for exposition of the book's thematic and plot points, Spielberg sacrificed some of the clarity in thematic and plot points for character instead. Crichton and Spielberg are pretty much the ideal pairing for a well-rounded story, precisely because they complement each other's strengths and weaknesses.
There's such a reality to it that's why I got really interested in this, because I said, God, science and adventure was come smashing together, and now it's based on what is probably going to happen someday.
But what you gain in one area, you lose in another. It's an essential rule of reality. I love the movie, and it does retain the majority of the book's most important mechanical beats. But by making the characters characters with things to say and do and think that are not merely expositing the author's point, some of that point is easier to miss. Ditto the film's much more effective use of wonder, which undercuts the book's stress on cynicism. Crichton doesn't allow and has little interest in wonder. The miracle of Jurassic Park is there to be dispelled, and the reasons for its failure are the most important thing to get across in Crichton's mind. The book's opening lets you know this right off the bat. It's probably the most atmospheric and eerie part of the entire story. The prologue sees a helicopter land in a stormy night at a Costa Rican village, transferring to a bemused doctor a young man who has been badly injured in some mysterious event over at a nearby island owned by an American multinational. The official story is that it was a mechanical accident, but the doctor is quite sure that what she's seeing is an animal attack. The young man dies. The last word he speaks is raptor. This terrifies the superstitious locals, reminding them of folk memories that have not been allowed to die, for young children in these villages have been bitten by strange lizards before, and it's happening more and more often. Later, the doctor walks in to check on a newborn infant. Those small lizards are standing around its cot. She sees what they've done to its face. Pretty fucking dark, as I'm sure you'll agree. Spielberg cribs the other part of the introduction for his first scene in The Lost World. An American family on holiday, their little girl is attacked by a strange lizard. But little of that made it into Jurassic Park, the movie, because unlike the book, the movie is a family affair. It's allowed to be dark, it's allowed to be complex, up to a point, but the light matters as well. The book uses its introduction, in typical Crichton fashion, to dramatize the scientific method. The lizard that attacks the girl is found, partially eaten by a monkey. Its remains pass through the hands of several scientists, and the system would have done its work quite early, potentially averting the big disaster on the island. But for humans. The lead specialist at the lab is on holiday. He's not gonna be back for weeks. The remains of the animal are put in a fridge. Some phone calls are made, but because nobody expects to see a dinosaur on their table, and because nobody knows what InGen is doing on that island, there's no great urgency to the investigation. That something has already gone badly wrong, that animals from the park are on the mainland before the main tale even begins, is known to the audience, but not to the very normal and competent people who might have discovered it, but for their incomplete information, their faulty assumptions, and their human wants, like holidays. The movie tracks the decline of the island itself as described in the book, but without describing it in great detail. It takes the show not tell approach. It's more artful, but that does make some of it easier to miss, especially when the film takes more delight in showing you how wonderful the island's premise is, which Spielberg uses to make a point that Crichton pretty much overlooks. There is no real equivalent of the film's Brachiosaurus scene in the book. The film lets you appreciate just how beautiful the vision is before it tears it down, and the scene tells you a huge amount about the characters Spielberg has created for those entities Crichton gave names. In the film, Alan Grant is awestruck and overcome, but non-committally. He is stunned, not joyful, not apprehensive, just stunned. He doesn't know what to make of it yet. Ellie Sattler is awestruck and joyful because she, more so than Alan Grant, is the surrogate for the audience's feelings about the place. Overjoyed at the beginning, becoming apprehensive after the reality of the raptors hits her at dinner.
But these are aggressive living things that have no idea what century they're in, and they'll defend themselves violently if necessary.
Culminating then in her confrontation with John Hammond.
And we have control again.
I never had control. That's the illusion. I was overwhelmed by the power of this place. But I made a mistake too. I didn't have enough respect for that power, and it's out now.
Donald Gennaro just sees dollar signs.
We're gonna make a fortune with this place.
Ian Malcolm is almost amused that something he already believes is disastrous has actually happened.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
And John Hammond is like a kid showing off his new toy and keen to move on to the next attraction.
Say again. We have a T-Rex.
The book's version of the scene is comparatively muted, and I quote,
Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Read by William Roberts. Grant stood on the path on the side of the hill with a mist on his face, staring at the grey necks craning above the palms. He felt dizzy, as if the ground were sloping away too steeply. He had trouble getting his breath, because he was looking at something he had never expected to see in his life. Yet he was seeing it. The animals in the mist were perfect apatosaurs, medium-sized sauropods. His stunned mind made academic associations. North American herbivores, late Jurassic horizon, commonly called brontosaurs, first discovered by E.D. Cope in Montana in 1876. Specimens associated with Morrison Formation strata in Colorado, Utah, and Oklahoma. Recently, Berman and McIntosh had reclassified it as a Diplodocus based on skull appearance. Traditionally, Brontosaurus was thought to spend most of its time in shallow water, which would help support its large bulk. Although this animal was clearly not in the water, it was moving much too quickly, the head and neck shifting above the palms in a very active manner, a surprisingly active manner. Grant began to laugh. "What is it?" Hammond said, worried. "Is something wrong?" Grant just shook his head and continued to laugh. He couldn't tell them that what was funny was that he had seen the animal for only a few seconds, but he had already begun to accept it, and to use his observations to answer long-standing questions in the field.
It's the film's allowance for the wonder that the book largely omits that maybe is the cause of the distraction, because, like Ellie Sattler, the film allows us to be blown away by the power of this place. Because everyone really wants it to succeed, and our quite passionate desire for wonder in real life, as in media analysis, often leads us to overlook what the thing really is.
Had to stop these things? I'm sorry, it's kind of a ride.
What the thing is really trying to say. It was Spielberg's great insight, as epitomized in the changes he made to John Hammond's character. In the book, an old, really quite cynical businessman, possibly in the early stages of dementia. That John Hammond is well suited to the type of story the book wanted to tell. It's his baser nature combined with nefarious big business interests exploiting an unregulated field worsened by corporate espionage that contributes to the park's predestined failure. It's a fundamentally cynical book, but Spielberg's Hammond fills in the missing half of Crichton's story, the positive, optimistic, all too human reason we fall for good intentions and big inventions and doomed dreams, and we do so over and over and over again. The film does a good job of showing you the problems described in the book. Jurassic Park as a location, as an island, as a park, it simply doesn't work. Just 2 docks for a mass tourist destination? 2 docks on an island that gets hit by every tropical storm there is, making those docks unusable? The only alternative point of entry is a precarious helicopter descent that is obviously unsuitable for passengers. Mile after mile of electrified fencing trying to preserve a dangerous unreality. The unfinished attractions. The visitor-welcoming cinematic that requires John Hammond himself to be there every single time it plays, center of attention. The tiny core team over-reliant on automated systems with a single human failure point who is in known financial difficulty and whose worth John Hammond refuses to pay.
Sorry about your financial problems, Dennis. I really am, but they are your problem.
Unsuitable flora.
You have plants in this building that are poisonous. You pick them because they look good.
Real dinosaurs that won't show up as reliably as the park ride attractions they are intended to be.
So much for our first tour. 2 no-shows and 1 sick triceratops.
No locks on the vehicle doors.
How many times we needed locking mechanisms on the vehicle doors?
Just one man, a big game hunter, underarmed because Hammond values his dinosaurs higher than his staff, who is expected to manage the most lethal and functionally alien animals on the planet. Dr. Wu's blasé confidence in his own genius. All of that is in the book, and all of that is in the movie. But unlike the book, which never lets you fall for the dream, Jurassic Park the movie puts you in the car with the kids on that first tour, and you find yourself as one of the passengers, just along for the ride. You don't want to hear how it won't work, doesn't work, can't work. You want to see the dinosaurs. You want it to succeed. Ian Malcolm suffers most from the movie's switch in tone for its opening act in particular, but overall he suffers most from its shift away from scientific exposition toward character-driven adventure horror. Malcolm acts as the book's ironic commentator, the character who keeps the audience superior to all others in the story.
His latest book is The Lost World. It enjoys a national release of 2 million copies. It is a sequel to Jurassic Park, whose film version grossed a record-breaking $912 million. I am pleased to have Michael Crichton back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Charles.
Characters who comes forward from Jurassic Park.
Only one, I think, Ian Malcolm.
He's the only one.
Yeah.
And he goes to Costa Rica.
Yes.
And he's the only one that will make an appearance.
Well, I don't know. Stephen may do something else, but...
Yeah.
But in the book, my thinking really was that I desperately needed that character back.
Yeah.
You know, because he is the ironic commentator inside the story who talks about the action as it takes place.
And we thought he was dead, but...
That's right. It's Sherlock Holmes when the Reichenbach falls, you know?
He is constantly ahead of the game, and his frequent expository speeches ensure that we, like he, but unlike his fellow visitors, know what's happening before it's happened. The books Ian Malcolm leaves us in no doubt what the problems are, how they function, and in many cases when and how they will appear later in the story. The movie, by contrast, actually depicts him as the rock star the book describes him as, but otherwise reduces his role to a much more vague foreshadower. He gets 2 monologues which are not quite specific but are foreshadowing: Life Finds a Way, spoken to Dr. Wu, and his caution against using power that requires no discipline to attain it. Both are excellent scenes that do a pretty good job distilling a feeling of unease, but the film as a whole omits the greater part of the why function his character serves in the book. There's one abortive attempt to flesh it out later in the movie, as he explains chaos theory to Ellie Sattler in the car, interrupted by more interesting things happening elsewhere, which reflects Spielberg's understandable disinterest in that part of the subject matter. Chaos theory is a bit of a meme in Jurassic Park. It's actually memed on in Jurassic Park 3.
Did you read Malcolm's book?
It was kind of preachy and too much chaos. Everything's chaos.
Which is how you know when an idea has fallen from grace. And this is, as I say, understandable, because Crichton himself misused chaos theory, granting it almost magical powers of foresight that are very hard to pull off in a believable drama. It's a pitfall in Crichton's genuinely interesting approach to intellectual orthodoxy, the tendency to overreach for an alternative, especially a fashionable alternative, which chaos theory was at around the time Crichton was writing Jurassic Park. Chaos theory was really popularized by Edward Lorenz, beginning with papers and research through the 1970s and culminating in his book The Essence of Chaos, published in 1993, the same year Jurassic Park was released in theaters. Crichton even gives Ian Malcolm an exposition dump summarizing Lorenz, which demonstrates the exposition foil device I described earlier in relation to Donald Gennaro's character, and I quote,
Chaos theory originally grew out of attempts to make computer models of weather in the 1960s. Weather is a big, complicated system, namely the Earth's atmosphere as it interacts with the land and the sun. The behavior of this big, complicated system always defied understanding, so naturally we couldn't predict weather. But what the early researchers learned from computer models was that even if you could understand it, you still couldn't predict it. Weather prediction is absolutely impossible. The reason is that the behavior of the system is sensitively dependent on initial conditions. You lost me, Gennaro said. If I use a cannon to fire a shell of a certain weight, at a certain speed and a certain angle of inclination, and if I then fire a second shell with almost the same weight, speed, and angle, what will happen? The 2 shells will land at almost the same spot. Right, Malcolm said. That's linear dynamics. Okay. But if I have a weather system that I start up with a certain temperature and a certain wind speed and a certain humidity, and if I then repeat it with almost the same temperature, wind, and humidity, the second system will not behave almost the same. It'll wander off and rapidly will become very different from the first. Thunderstorms instead of sunshine. That's nonlinear dynamics. They are sensitive to initial conditions. Tiny differences become amplified. I think I see, Gennaro said. The shorthand is the butterfly effect. A butterfly flaps its wings in Peking, and weather in New York is different. So chaos is all just random and unpredictable, Gennaro said. Is that it? No, Malcolm said. We actually find hidden regularities within the complex variety of a system's behavior. That's why chaos has now become a very broad theory that's used to study everything from the stock market to rioting crowds to brain waves during epilepsy. Any sort of complex system where there is confusion and unpredictability. We can find an underlying order. Okay? Okay, Gennaro said, but what is this underlying order? It's essentially characterized by the movement of the system within phase space, Malcolm said. Jesus, Gennaro said, all I want to know is why you think Hammond's Island can't work. I understand, Malcolm said. I'll get there.
5 hours later.
But hadn't you better see the island to see what he's actually done? No, that is quite unnecessary. The details don't matter. Theory tells me that the island will quickly proceed to behave in unpredictable fashion. And you're confident of your theory? Oh, yes, Malcolm said, totally confident. He sat back in the chair. There is a problem with that island. It is an accident waiting to happen.
Ian Malcolm's sustained attacks on Jurassic Park and the philosophy behind it for pretty much the first 2/3 of the book have a firm grounding in the study of complex systems. It results in what you might call the weak or the tame or the simple argument from chaos theory, the one that's put in the above quote. As in the other books I've mentioned, he criticizes human overconfidence in our understanding of complex systems and the resultant attempts to reduce them to human management that will inevitably go wrong. Seemingly simple systems with hidden complexities produce unpredictable outcomes. Any set of assumptions expecting simple systems will fall apart because of those hidden complexities. The more hidden complexity, the more unpredictable interactions, the greater the eventual difference between expected result and reality. But the fundamental irony of chaos theory is that if you push it too far, as Crichton does in the book, it replicates the same folly it's describing. It's a neat label for describing the problem, but the problem precludes the predictive aspirations chaos theory will often take on. Just because something is in principle deterministic does not mean you are able in practice to predict it. Put simply, it's one thing to say, this system is way more complex than you give it credit for and your park will go wrong, John. It's another thing entirely to say, this system is way more complex than you give it credit for, and this will certainly lead to specific failures with electric fences, feeding systems, dinosaur breeding, and an escaped T-Rex, which is what Crichton has Ian Malcolm do in the book, increasingly as time goes on. So what might have been a clear cautionary lesson against hubris is at least partially undermined by its chief exponent making essentially the same hubristic mistake, but being proven right. Chaos theory in the book takes on an almost magical quality. It moves from the simple claim, you don't know what you don't know, and is used by Crichton to refute that same point. Ian Malcolm does know what you don't know. His theory can predict specificity in a complex system. And because this is all quite abstract and technical, because it requires long expository scenes like the one I've quoted above, it gets reduced to a mere mention in the film, and much of the accompanying argument, even the good, clear bits, is either abridged or omitted entirely. This is what produces the vague dangers of science description of the theme that too many people, not necessarily you clever bastard, but too many people ascribe to the movie. The result is that the lesson, the meaning, the argument that the film does show in large part becomes comparatively easy to miss. On the one hand, a complex idea necessarily abridged. On the other hand, the introduction of wonder because the film understands that you really want it to succeed. Combine these two things and it is easy to miss, if not the entirety of the point, then the precise meaning of the point, and the depth of the meaning in that point. Unfortunately, we live in a time when people will miss a point even when you stab them with it repeatedly in the face. It leads to the assumption that Jurassic Park is popular just because dinosaurs, which is only true to a point. The result is that subsequent Jurassic movies are produced and excused on the grounds that if dinosaurs, then good. The modern attitude is that children are a simple system, easy to satisfy. The hidden complexity is that this belief produces retarded children. A book and a movie with one of the most important and applicable lessons for modern times is thereby reduced. In an era where ever more expansive public policy and supporting regulation is produced with the aim of controlling ever more complex systems, from the climate to immigration to international law to public psychology, we ignore the most popular cautionary tale against this illusion of control. We've all seen Jurassic Park, many of us have read Jurassic Park, and yet, figuratively and literally, we keep making new ones. All of the above might suggest that the idea of education through fiction is doomed to failure. I don't mean it to be quite that bleak. I would only go so far as to say that we have forgotten the art of engaging properly with fiction. We are perhaps definitely, too easily moved by spectacle and too deaf to story, to theme, and to meaning. This in turn produces a cascade failure that results in fiction that is only spectacle. And I'm afraid to say that is where we're heading next. For we have a movie to review. It is a movie like the other movies released in the summer of 2025. And as Ian Malcolm almost said, shite finds a way.
I'm so pleased that your children are interested in genetic engineering.
It's okay, Fluffy. Nobody's gonna hurt you.
It's thanks to the wonders of genetic engineering that soon there will be an end to hunger, disease, pollution, even war. I have created things that will change the world for the better. For instance, here is a monkey with 4 asses.
Present day. It's been 32 years since dinosaurs returned. It hasn't, actually. It's been 32 years since the first Jurassic Park movie. The dinosaurs in that movie were already there at the start of that movie and were several years in the making. But hey-ho, details. Michael Crichton famously skimped on the details. But the modern climate and disease have taken their toll, and public interest has waned. Jesus Christ, we've reached the opening text and the movie is so broken. Remember the end of Jurassic World Dominion? Fuck it, of course you don't. Remember the end, for the sake of argument, of Jurassic World Dominion, where it was implied that dinosaurs were now a fully integrated part of the ecosystem and of nature and we'd learn to live in peace with them? Yeah, well, suddenly they remembered they can't do that, so now they're all dead. Blue and her little raptor family? Deceased. All the dinosaurs in the Biosyn Valley Reserve? Deceased. All those black market dinosaurs everybody thought would be good for fighting terrorists for some reason? Yeah, also fucking deceased. They would have been great at fighting terrorists, but they couldn't fight the climate. As mentioned, all the World movies steal bits and pieces of unused content from Crichton's books. Dinosaurs' poor adaptation to modern climates was accounted for in Jurassic Park. One of the stegosaurs was basically asthmatic. Disease was a concern, as it is in all zoos, but these are artificial creations made in a substantial way using genetic material from modern reptiles and amphibians. The illusion of total control does not mean no partial control was possible. Steps would have, should have, and could have been taken to adapt dinosaurs a little bit better for the current environment, and dinosaurs did not suddenly become unsuited to their environment after living in it for 32 years. Did nobody in Jurassic Park or in Jurassic World, these fully functioning establishments at various points of the timeline, do anything at all to prepare the dinosaurs for living in the parks? Also, public interest has waned. Again. In the first Jurassic World, public interest had waned, so they created mutant dinosaurs that could invisibly kill the audience. Audiences sure do love attractions they can't see, and also that eat them. In Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, our plucky team of heroes nobody remembers the names of had to privately rescue dinosaurs from an exploding island because public interest had waned and nobody wanted to do that, and everyone had forgotten the dinosaurs on the other island were totally safe. Then, we forgot that public interest had waned so that movie could decide that rich people would bid millions of dollars on them at private auctions, but whatever, it makes no fucking sense. In Jurassic World Dominion, people had to learn to live with dinosaurs, and public interest definitely hadn't waned because this was portrayed as a difficult thing to do. It is, after all, difficult not to be interested when allosaurs occasionally pop up in the middle of your cities and start eating people. But now, in Afterbirth, public interest has definitely waned. Again, for like the 3rd or the 4th time.
Nobody cares about these animals anymore.
Stop doing this. People still visit zoos, and all zoos have is fucking lions and shit. It hasn't even been 20 years since Jurassic World opened. Clone Girl in Fallen Kingdom only released a fairly small number of dinosaurs, all things considered. The population is pretty small. Dinosaurs would be too rare to get bored of. What's happening here is that the movies are bored of dinosaurs because they are made by incredibly boring people. Most surviving species now only thrive in a tropical band around the equator. I'm all for a Jurassic World sequel apologizing for Dominion, but I really do think you could have done a better job. Just wait till they explain that they all live at the equator because that's where all the oxygen is. Retarded fucking movie. Human travel there is expressly forbidden. Oh, is it? Is it really? No, I wonder how long that rule will hold. The movie proper begins with a traffic jam caused by a sauropod dying in the street. A car radio message tells us that it is the last surviving animal of its kind in all of North America, and it escaped its enclosure to die. It escaped its enclosure in the middle of a city. You people had T-Rex Tuesdays in an inner city zoo. All the mise-en-scène is designed to tell you people are, really bored of dinosaurs. Signs are painted over. People in the streets are frustrated and unmoved by the dying dinosaur because it is making them late for work. Museums are being shuttered. People are so bored of dinosaurs that we keep throwing in references to that old dinosaur movie everyone still loves. In the car is Evil Businessman. Evil Businessman is this film's villain, kind of? Not really actual, fuck it, we'll get to that. He's arranged a meeting with a contact, but the contact has come to him. Black Widow is in the movie.
Miss Bennett, I presume? Hello.
Two people sitting in a car means dialogue, which usually means character establishment scene. But as there aren't any characters in this movie, we get sterile introductory setup scene instead.
What is it that you do at Parkergenics?
My company is developing a new medication. We have certain needs.
That sounds vague.
They say you're good at procuring things and not asking a lot of questions. They also say you're untroubled by possible legal or ethical implications.
Hello, what do you do? I work at Evil Genetics Company and I have a mission for you because you are a secret agent mercenary woman and you get the job done.
I lost a friend on my last job, so I am not up for procurement.
Well, you don't know what it is yet.
Yes, but you work for a pharmaceutical company, right? So guessing info theft?
You can more or less discard that bit about the dead friend. That's not going to be relevant to anything in the movie whatsoever because Black Widow is not a character. This exchange tells us that she is a super spy woman, which we already know, but we might as well say it twice because fuck it, why not? What else have we got to do?
I'm sorry, I do retrieval and extraction, not heists.
You know, from a certain point of view, a heist is just retrieval and extraction. In fact, no, from any point of view, a heist is just retrieval and extraction. That is literally what it means.
It's dinosaurs. They may be through with us, but we're not through with them.
Yeah, that is pretty much the exact opposite of the case, though, isn't it, chum? We had a whole opening text slate explaining that we were very much done with dinosaurs, and they were all dying of natural causes. They are in no sense through with us. I don't know why we should be expected to pay attention to this movie when nobody in it can be bothered.
Well, I think you're all dead or dying, so...
Except for on a few islands around the equator.
Those are no-go zones for a reason.
Everybody knows this. Everyone in universe knows it. The audience all know it because we saw it in the text setup. Why are we wasting time repeating it? Black Widow says, nah, she's not interested in whatever this mission is, and she leaves. Evil Businessman follows her and gives him his villainous pitch. How about we save a whole bunch of lives?
You know that 20% of the world's population will die of heart disease? Now just imagine, take somebody you know, anybody, and imagine that you could be the one to give them an extra 20 years of life.
Aha, says you, savvy movie-going audience member that you are. I know how this works. I've seen movies before. He's playing the noble philanthropist here, but I know an evil businessman when I see one, and they always have ulterior motives. Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom wanted to use dinosaurs to fight in wars because because they were completely retarded. I wonder what evil businessman's secret agenda is. He doesn't have one. He's telling the truth. He genuinely just wants to cure heart disease. He's actually a really good guy. Scarjo says nah, so he ups his game. Okay, you, the hero of the piece, might not want to hear my villainous pitch to cure heart disease, but have you considered money?
Have very deep pockets.
Evil businessman offers her $10 million so she can retire and never have to risk her life for anything again. The hitch is that the mission is illegal because every government on the planet has outlawed travel to these islands where the dinosaurs live, despite the fact they contain incredibly valuable genetic material, which is all privately owned, which has the potential to cure diseases and make buttloads of money. Because everyone's bored of dinosaurs? Okay, whatever. Black Widow signs on the dotted line and they head off to pick up a new team member who is a civilian. This is Moral Science Man, whose job in the movie is to be Ian Malcolm, if Ian Malcolm had been written by a slack-jawed troglodytic communist. Moral Science Man works in a museum that is closing because nobody is interested in dinosaurs anymore, in case you missed that point. This allows us to watch a brief animation setting up some essential world state information. It is very important. They have taken time out of their movie to include it, therefore it must have something massively consequential to say. I wonder what it could be.
The Neo-Jurassic Age has proven lethal to dinosaurs, though some species can survive in a few isolated, oxygen-rich tropical microclimates clustered in equatorial regions.
3 times. We're 10 minutes into the movie. We have now heard this 3 times. Also, no, oxygen does not cluster in equatorial islands, you duck-billed hadrosaur. This is like Michael Crichton trying to say that Isla Nublar was ideal for Jurassic Park because there's less gravity there. Stop it. Evil Science Man explains why Moral Science Man is useful to them.
Dr. Loomis has been advising Parkogenics for the past 6 months on paleocoronary health. We're developing a new drug, paleodioxin, derived from the largest dinosaur species on record. Computer modeling suggests it could forestall coronary disease by an average of 2 decades.
Sounds pretty evil, right? I'm still not seeing why we need to go all the way to an equatorial island for this mission, though. Maybe we all need to be high on oxygen for the plot to make sense.
Think what that might have meant for your mother. I'm so sorry for your loss.
Anybody can read a file. If you get personal, though, I'm out.
Aren't you supposed to be a secret agent? Oh, fuck it. Who cares? It's not going to come up again.
This research is crucial. We just can't get it to trial. We need samples from living dinosaurs.
Oh, well, good news then, because, you know, there's one right out in the street. Get your little science kit. Go get your sample before the brachiosaur dies.
Species must be a true colossus.
It's a brachiosaur. Pretty sure it's big enough. You should definitely go get it.
The biggest animals across 3 categories: seagoing, land-based, and avian.
It sounds like you're making the plan unnecessarily complicated.
Why the biggest?
Where's their hearts? And they live the longest.
Yes, but that still doesn't explain why we're going air, land, and sea. This isn't fucking Avatar.
Which means the 3 dinosaurs they need are Mosasaurus, lives in the ocean, and Titanosaurs. You'll find them on land, and in the sky, Quetzoclphohthsofigusg, the largest pterosaur.
A science man question for you, if you don't mind. If you want the biggest dinosaurs with the biggest hearts because they live the longest, why are you going for the pterosaur? Because, you know, the thing with flying dinosaurs is that they're kind of, relatively speaking, small. There's this pesky little thing called physics, you might have heard of it. That Quetzalcoatlus is tiny compared to that brachiosaur out in the street. The brachiosaur has a much bigger heart. Pretty sure it would live longer if it was in a place with fucking oxygen. And that brachiosaur in the street is fucking huge compared to a human. I think a brachiosaur heart is good enough at least for a start. Typical fucking Yanks. You'd rather get a prehistoric animal heart transplant than just cut the calories a bit. Oh, also, evil businessman, question, if you don't mind. You do know that all these animals were genetically engineered and created by InGen, right? right? You realize you bought a whole bunch of InGen stuff when they went Chapter 11? You do know dinosaurs have been all over the planet for years at this point and basically fair game for capture and experimentation? Those morons in Dominion made laser-guided raptors. Because, yeah, pointing a laser to sick a raptor on a man is much more effective than shooting him. We can grow organs on mice and limbs in test tubes. Stem cells are a thing. Why not just make a titanosaur heart in a lab? Why not just make a whole titanosaur if you insist? Someone somewhere's got to have the genome on file. Anyway, stupid video game plan exposited. It's time to begin teasing evil businessman's sinister, nasty, villainous, evil, vile, corrupt, villainous, bitchy, bastard, corrupt, awful, bad, evil, nasty, no good motive.
A drug that could prevent heart disease would be the biggest medical breakthrough in centuries.
I'm sure it'd be worth billions, right?
Trillions.
Oh, fuck. Hitler alert. The man wants to cure heart disease for money. This is intolerable. Someone fetch Luigi Mangione. What a disgusting man.
The only way for our scientists to complete the strands now is with living dinosaurs.
You say that, but it isn't really true.
Hemoglobin deoxygenates within seconds post-mortem.
You can throw as many science words into the script as you like. This is still weapons-grade bullshit. John Hammond was able to build these in a cave with a box of amber.
All these species exist in one isolated location.
No, they don't. They live on the equator. The thing with the equator is it goes all around the world. One of these dinosaurs lives in the ocean and the other one flies.
We're putting together a team and we'd like to leave immediately. We have competitors and Mr. Parker does not tolerate second place.
But you said nobody's interested in dinosaurs and nobody's allowed on the island and will never at any point so much as mention competitors ever again. Which is it, movie? Either everyone still needs the dinosaurs or everyone's bored of dinosaurs. Evil businessman says they need the team to leave tomorrow and that moral science man will be going with them because every team needs an annoying communist hippie to keep the morale up.
We're not qualified to identify the animals or predict behavior.
I could identify and describe their behavior when I was 7. I had these magical, rare, high-tech things. They're called books.
I was elected to lead, not to read.
I mean, I hear you, but also fucking no.
Why don't you send an army?
The fewer people know about this, the better.
This is very important because it's going to explain why this team sends a single small boat to the island rather than a ship with several teams or several planes worth of teams or several helicopters worth of teams, given how massively important this mission is. We're not doing that because it might be detected, and that would be bad. Of course, it's not going to explain how Black Widow was able to arrange a backup helicopter to track them and hover around for a couple of days in case they need a rescue, because acknowledging that in any way would break the movie, and not for the first time.
I can guarantee your safety. I mean, yeah, more or less.
You can't, though. The whole reason we're bringing Moral Science Guy is that you don't know how dinosaurs behave for some reason, even though you've lived close to them for so long that you've gotten bored of them. Moral Science Man is reluctant, so Black Widow tries to entice him with money. But Moral Science Man is a communist, and so this doesn't appeal to him, because if communism is good for anything, it's ensuring that nobody has any money.
You ever seen a dinosaur in the wild?
Every fucking day, mate. Jurassic World Dominion established that.
I don't mean in a theme park, I mean in its natural habitat.
But they don't have that. Literally the entire point of Jurassic Park is that these animals are unnatural. They are man-made. They were created by humans. They do not belong in this world, and their interactions with it are wholly unpredictable. We've been told 3 times that they've all died because this is their unnatural habitat. If an island on the equator counts because it's not a city or a theme park, you could have wandered into any of the many woods and forests run by the National Park Service in North America, or to that Biosyn Valley Reserve that Dominion created, and you could have seen them there. And if seeing them in places like that is as appealing to Moral Science Man as it is, he would already have done it. So his answer to this question is, yep, and I'm not going with you. Moral Science Man briefly considers this, and he laments that his museum is closing down.
Nobody cares about these animals anymore.
You can say it as often as you like, I am never going to believe you. There is then an excruciatingly long section where they sit opposite each other in silence while Moral Science Man eats a mint. It tells us absolutely nothing about any of the people in the scene, and I do not know why it is in the movie.
You ready?
Yeah.
Off we fly to Paramaribo in the country of Surname to recruit more team members in order that dinosaurs have somebody to eat. Here we meet Mahershala Ali, who has been waiting so long for his Blade movie that he has turned to smuggling to make ends meet. No, I'm sorry. Everyone's bored of dinosaurs and we're 400 miles north of the equator. Nobody cares about that creature they keep in a cage because they like it, and it's already dead because there's not enough oxygen. I don't make the rules. You've said it 3 fucking times. Not Quite Blade and Black Widow have conspired to game this scene so that they can extort more money out of evil businessman. Because the only thematic point in this entire movie is that money is bad, and characters have to overcome their attachment to it. You will own nothing. You will be happy. You will be able to inject open source dinosaur blood directly into your veins. Anyway, this scene is here so we understand that Black Widow really likes money so that we can appreciate her character growth when she inevitably and correctly decides she dislikes money at the end of the movie. This is a wonderfully rich film with so much to say. But it is also here so we recruit Not Quite Blade. What is Not Quite Blade's skill set, you ask? And why do we need him on our team? What precisely is he good at?
Moving things and people in and out of places they shouldn't be.
Because massive companies don't have much money or many contacts, Not Quite Blade's ability to crash boats is deemed valuable enough to double their fee. So now he's on board. Pun very much intended, and only a little bit regretted. He brings with him a crew. They are called Dinobait, and Dinobait. Oh look, I know that one. You were in Rebel Moon. Zack Snyder told me Rebel Moon was more successful than Barbie, so I assume you've turned that success into a very important role in this movie. Their first target is the Mosasaur. InGen went Chapter 11 after the failure of Jurassic World, and Parker Genetics bought the tracking data because they're so very bored of dinosaurs. Black Widow notes that it is very near the equator.
Why near the equator? Why don't they survive anywhere else?
It's warmer and rich with oxygen.
4 times? We've now heard this 4 fucking times. Now I just need somebody to explain why the dinosaurs didn't notice this at any point in the last 32 years. Oh, by the way, I said these world movies just lift scraps directly from the Crichton books because they have all the rights and none of the ideas. Well, this line here from Moral Science Man, it's basically an entire Ian Malcolm paragraph. From the book, I quote, I also told him where the deviations would occur. Obviously, the fitness of the animals to the environment was one area. This stegosaur is 100 million years old. It isn't adapted to our world. The air is different. The solar radiation is different. The land is different. The insects are different. The sounds are different. The vegetation is different. Everything is different. The oxygen content is decreased. This poor animal's like a human being at 10,000 feet altitude. Listen to him wheezing.
The solar radiation is different, the insects, vegetation, everything is different.
Of course, in the book, this was to explain why Jurassic Park could not work. Not that specific park, mind you, but the very concept, which combines so many overlapping systems of such vast complexity that true knowledge of them is impossible and control is a mere illusion. But sure, T-Rex Tuesdays at the local city zoo? Yeah, they'll work without a hitch. Impeccable safety record. The dinosaurs just got bored and died peacefully, but no one was killed. Evil Businessman explains that the island they're going to is dangerous. But Rebel Moon says, lol, we'll be fine. I watched The Lost World recently, and Eddie had that neurotoxin gun, and that worked so very well. So now I have one of those, and I'm sure I won't meet the same fate. That would just be shamelessly derivative.
Neurotoxins.
How fast?
Paralysis. Within a couple of seconds.
The news that they carry guns alarms Moral Science Man.
Is this the part where you tell me it's a crime to kill a dinosaur?
No, this is where I tell you it's a sin to kill a dinosaur.
So, what if it's us all then?
then we put ourselves in a place where we don't belong.
Thank you, aging hippie liberal douche.
I remind you, you dirty hippie, that humans made these dinosaurs and they do not belong anywhere. But thank you for informing us that you'd rather die than harm a dinosaur. I guess that means we can feed you to the T-Rex by way of an apology. Then the plan is laid out for us. They have a special gun that shoots special darts that extract blood and then parachute to safety. And this will be how they get their samples. They can't do this with drones because that technology doesn't properly exist in the minds of Hollywood writers, visionary sci-fi geniuses that they are. And no, the fully mapped genomic structure of all InGen's most valuable creations was somehow lost at some point in the past, even though both Biosyn and InGen were fully operational just a few years ago. Moral Science Man, who is against making money and harming dinosaurs and curing heart disease for reasons of communism, says he wants to be the one to take the shot at the Mosasaur, but Black Widow correctly points out that he is a moron and this is her job, and he immediately backs down because this scene never figured out why it should be in the movie. Speaking of...
I heard about Booker.
Just a car bomb. Out of nowhere.
Quick at least.
Not really.
What's happening here is that the movie really wants to have characters in it, and it's dimly aware that it hasn't made any of those yet. It's useful as a scene because it gives ScarJo and Mahershala an opportunity to act, and like Florence Pugh and David Harbour in Thunderbolts, the fact they are able to do this might trick the unwary viewer into thinking that they are, in fact, playing characters. They are not, in fact, playing characters, and very little that is shared in this exchange will have any bearing on anything that will happen in this movie. Besides establishing that Black Widow is essentially good people. She doesn't like when people die, and she missed her own mother's funeral, so she's doing this mission for the money in order that she doesn't have to see people die or miss her mother's funeral ever again. What she fails to realize, but will by the end of the movie, is that money is evil. Money is so evil that taking it is actually worse than watching people die and missing your mother's funeral. So, you know, she has room to grow as a character.
Please tell me you worked it out with Amelia.
Yeah. Whenever we looked at each other, we just saw our little boy.
This is to establish that Not Quite Blade is also good people and he likes kids, but not in a Disney way. It is vital that we establish this here because later he's going to save a kid, and nobody would save a kid unless they had a very good reason to do so. This is basically the extent of the character work in this movie, and there will be almost nothing more to say about either of these people for the remainder of its runtime. Grant and Sattler, they are not. They're not even the fucking Kirbys.
We are very pathetic.
You are, yeah, sure, you are. But it's not really your fault. I mean, the writers are to blame if anyone is. Subtlety being gay, the movie has Not Quite Blade tell Black Widow that getting rich, which is the reason he's here, won't be enough, and that she should do something that matters before it's too late. Say, remember how in Jurassic Park, Spielberg had Ellie Sattler tell Alan Grant overtly and over again that family is the most important thing in the world, so he should definitely help the children because that's the theme of the movie? What's that? You don't? Well, that's because back in the 1990s, people had this thing called art, and they knew how to tell something called a story with a magical property known as subtext. Anyway, this scene is allowed to happen because Not Quite Blade has told us that they need to sail past Barbados to avoid government patrols, which gives them time. Helpfully, he also explains that there are no government patrols to avoid.
Why's that? No one's dumb enough to go where we're going.
Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, some morons are going where they're going.
Where's your boyfriend? It's his turn at the wheel.
He's just getting dressed.
This is the Happy Family. They're here because this is a simulacrum of a Jurassic movie, and the idiots in charge understand that family is usually a theme in Jurassic movies. They don't seem to understand that there is a difference between family as a theme and having a family in your movie, because they are indeed idiots. Jurassic Park's family covers all of theme, character, and narrative mechanics. The coming together together in time of adversity broadly covers theme, but the romantic tension in the movie stems from Sattler and Grant's divergent views on children. This is never stated outright, because Jurassic Park is a good movie and it doesn't think its audience are morons. But it's present from pretty much the very first scene. Sattler and Grant aren't really together, though it quickly becomes apparent they both want to be, because while Sattler subtly conveys that she wants kids, and this is a bit of a deal breaker, Grant begins as A, entirely ignorant of her desires, and B, antipathetic toward children as a concept. It's one of the many ways the movie improves the book, where this character drama isn't really present. Forced together by circumstance, Grant grows as a character when he is compelled to accompany and protect Tim and Lex, and by the end of the movie he has ascended to fatherhood, with the implication being that this seals his relationship with Sattler. Well, at least until Jurassic Park 3 forgot that point. Sattler never told him what she wanted, he had to learn the self-sufficient value of parenthood independently, and by doing so, they came together. None of the other Jurassic movies do this anything like as well, but The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, and even Jurassic World all do it substantially better than this film does. Even Dominion tries to do more with the family theme. Ian Malcolm becomes a better and more present father in The Lost World to, how does that, it's been years, I don't get it. How is she his, fuck it. In Jurassic Park 3, the Kirbys begin as a broken family and are mended by their experiences together. And Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard sort of learn the value of caregiving in their movies, occasionally, when they aren't being completely retarded. Family being the thematic goal, it is for characters and their relationships to change dynamically, which requires a firm delta or difference between their starting and ending positions. You get this across all of those movies that I've mentioned. The Afterbirth family, by contrast, has basically nothing. Their entire arc, such as it is, can be summed up thusly. Father doesn't like boyfriend because boyfriend is a douche. Boyfriend kind of tries to protect girlfriend once. Father now likes boyfriend a bit more. The end. And all that happens before the halfway point of the movie, meaning they spend more than half their screen time just doing narrative busy work. None of them have character by any meaningful definition. Father is the father, older sister is the older sister, younger sister is the younger sister. They don't really have a view of each other. There isn't any animosity between them. There is no gripes to be overcome. All we learn about any of these three is that older sister is going to university at some point, and that never intersects with the plot in any way. It's so shallow it doesn't even deserve to be called superficial. The boat, which is traveling through what is supposed to be a government-controlled exclusion zone that the government doesn't bother to patrol because nobody would be stupid enough to go through the exclusion zone except all the pleasure boaters who do, gets attacked and overturned by a couple of Spinosaurs and a Mosasaur. Douche boyfriend outswims the Mosasaur, which is exactly as stupid as you'd expect, and we jump away for an entirely pointless scene in which Moral Science Man and Black Widow talk about nothing. I'd have skipped over it entirely, not even bothered to mention it, except that for absolutely no reason, the movie decided that two characters talking about fuck all was worthy of some original Jurassic Park music. I got annoyed when the first Jurassic World threw in John Williams themes as cheap memberberry heartstring-tugging nonsense, but at least they had a use. Not Quite Blade's boat picks up the Mayday signal from the Pointless family's pointless boat, and they divert to rescue these imbeciles so they can continue to be in the movie for no particular reason. At this point, you see, they haven't written in that Black Widow has arranged for a helicopter to shadow them all the way to the island, so they have no choice but to go themselves because it's just how writing doesn't work. The Mosasaur and the Spinosaurus just stopped attacking the fam after they tipped their boat over, I guess. There's absolutely no precedent for a Spinosaurus completely destroying a boat, so I guess this is just fine. The main crew picks up the pointless fam, and they take them on their highly illegal, top-secret, very dangerous mission. Oh god, listen, Rebel Moon, there comes a point when your shirt is so tight that there is just no point. Your tits stand out more than ScarJo's do, and they're pretty substantive. Rebel Moon correctly points out that tens of millions of dollars and a cure for heart disease are at stake, and they could easily pick up the pointless fam after they get the Mosasaur sample. Might even be safer if you don't take a family along on this incredibly dangerous mission, which is so obviously the correct idea that it makes him bad people and it guarantees he'll die.
What the hell are you doing this far out with a little kid? Well, what is your problem? The problem is you should have known better. How?
Because it's a government exclusion zone, and you'd have to be insane to go there because everyone knows that's where the dinosaurs live. We have established this.
There are 50,000 boats on this ocean right now. One was attacked by a Mosasaur. What are the odds?
You were 40 miles away from the one place in the world where all the dinosaurs live, even though they live all around the equator, but never mind.
Why would a Mosasaur attack a sailboat?
Maybe it thought the boat was a rival, and it wanted to eliminate any competition.
Or, and hear me out here, maybe the Mosasaur knows that boats have people on them and people are food? That is the most plausible explanation. I do get that the movie is self-conscious and it felt it needed to explain why it roped the pointless fam into its A-plot when they don't belong there, but its explanation makes less sense than no explanation at all. Then, oh dear, oh shock and horror, the Mosasaur attacks! And by attacks I mean it gently nudges the boat to start the video game QTE where you have to shoot it while it loops in a swimming animation. No, you're not. She's right there. This is just a minigame, dude. Calm down. Well, okay, that was a little bit harsh. It's not just a minigame. What it also is a Jaws ripoff. Remember Jaws? Bow plank, attaching yourself to the railings. You have to harpoon the big sea monster. One shot isn't enough. Quickly attach another one. Why are you taking so long? Tension mounts. Successful shot. Oh no, it's coming back and it's all angry with us now. Boat takes damage. Yeah, it is just that. We are ripping off other Spielberg movies as well. Oh, it's just so wonderfully creative. Sample retrieved. Moral science guy suggests that Black Widow shouldn't be after money because money is bad.
Well, what if we get the samples and we don't give them over to a company that makes a life-saving drug and then prices it so 99% of the planet can afford it?
Listen, I know Americans have a very unpopular healthcare system, and I understand you're told this is because of corporate greed rather than an absurd federally mandated system of state monopolies, but it takes precisely 5 seconds to look up the disease and fatality trends over the last century, and these strongly suggest that medicines, overwhelmingly developed by American pharma companies, are not, in fact, unaffordable to 99% of the global population. There's a little bit of the Fallout problem here. It's not as bad as that. In Fallout, evil capitalists decided to nuke the world because money. It's an underpants gnome thing, Nuke the world, ? Profit. Well, here in Jurassic World Afterbirth, we need to make money with new medical technology. And in order to make money, we're going to ensure that it's too expensive for most people to buy. This is not historically how companies work. I'm in the process of opening a little high street business. I think if we charged more for our services than anyone could pay, our business would probably go out of business. New medicines and technologies don't come from nowhere. R&D and regulatory approval is very expensive. Manufacture and delivery costs much moolah. And profit remains the single best way to incentivize the development of any new product you care to name. What exactly is your alternative, moral science guy?
Science is for all of us, not some of us.
I'll tell you the problem with the scientific power that you're using here. It didn't require any discipline to attain it.
What's the point? Have you thought about that? Because it sounds like you're just channeling some idiot Hollywood writer who has unfortunately benefited from reduced infant mortality.
Well, then maybe you should start.
Maybe you should stop.
Oh, I see. We're just not ready to hear his genius plan to subvert big pharma because money is evil yet. By getting blood samples from massive dinosaurs that wouldn't exist if InGen hadn't created them for profit. I have a feeling we'll have a little bit more to say on this topic later. Then, oh no, shock again, horror again, the Spinosaurs are back. This is getting out of hand. Now there are 4 of them. Spinosaurus was one lone apex predator in Jurassic Park 3, but fuck it, don't let continuity get in the way of your references. It's going to be really interesting to see how we develop this concept. We're not going to develop this concept later. What am I talking about? Rebel Moon is the gunman. He bought the neurotoxin weapon, and it's basically his one thing. He is here for mission security. He told us as much earlier. So naturally, he misses every single shot, and then he gets himself munched. That sure does look familiar. Oh, it's just so sad. We hadn't even got to know him. It's what makes his death so tremendously impactful. Oh goodness, no, we can't be killing Dino Bait yet. She's everyone's favorite character, and you know, we need to save some Dino Bait for later. Younger sister almost slides out of the boat. Father grabs her. He hurts his leg. The film shows us this. It's not really relevant to anything. Not Quite Blade decides to drive his boat into the rocky shallows on the theory that the Mosasaur won't be able to follow them there. The Spinosaurs can, but the script says that doesn't matter, and so, you know, they're just gonna disappear from the movie. Oh boy, it's just like Jaws.
Stop, stop. What do you mean, stop?
Oh boy, it's still just like Jaws. Oh boy, oh no, okay, nobody in Jaws was that retarded. Evil businessman seems a little bit stunned by these developments, as are we all, because yes, not every day you see somebody push themselves out of a boat. And the scene for some reason chooses to make all of this a little bit ambiguous, because the way Evil Businessman gets up and the strange slowed down audio treatment might give the impression he didn't help her because he was a little bit concussed and confused. It's very unwise to have left this ambiguous though, and to have made idiot older sister defenestrate herself, because this scene is the closest to bad that Evil Businessman is going to get in this entire movie. You have to accept that he deliberately let her fall for him to get anywhere near villainy. The movie will later convince itself that he pushed her out of the boat, but we were there, we know that didn't happen. I'd be willing to provide a character witness if this ever makes it to court. But even accepting that, he was trying to stop her because A, he does genuinely want to cure heart disease, and B, they would all be arrested if the government learned where they were, and that would prevent them curing heart disease. So, what gives, movie? You've given us Evil Businessman, but you seem to have forgotten to actually write the evil bit of his character. Anyway, older sister's fallen in, and so douche boyfriend jumps in to rescue her. And that is the last time anyone in the fam part of the movie gets any character development at all. Oh, I see how it is. Nobody cares when a girl falls into the water, but when a man goes over the edge, then everybody starts panicking. It's this kind of institutional sexism that we've tried to stamp out from illegal mercenary groups. Father and younger sister decide to jump in after them, and then everybody else besides Not Quite Blade decides that the boat is about to crash, and they all jump in as well. It sure is lucky those Spinosaurs just popped out of the fucking universe. Otherwise they'd all be eaten, and that would be tragic. Not Quite Blade successfully crashes his boat onto the beach and suffers no injuries whatsoever. This is, after all, his one thing, and they all know he's good at it. Meaning they only jumped off because the plot needed them to do that. But it's right there. It's right next to you as they jump. What is this fuckery? Somehow, despite jumping off separately, all of the fam managed to reunite in the same cove. How very, very lucky. They're going to be on their own for the next too long part of the movie because screenwriter David Cope did some... I actually know if his name is David Cope, but that sort of works. We're sticking with it. Because screenwriter David Cope did some of the work on the original Jurassic Park, and he seems to think he has unfinished business. What that means is he's going to use the fam as an excuse to steal sequences from the book that didn't make it into the first film, and he's going to do this with all the care and finesse of a hate fuck from Ted Bundy. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that I think Michael Crichton being a screenwriter might have had a little bit more to do with the success of the first Jurassic Park than Mr. Cope. Before disembarking, Not Quite Blade grabs a picture of his dead kid. The camera lingers on it and conventionally, this is the sort of thing that means a character is going to tragically and heroically sacrifice himself before the end of the movie. It ranks just behind "This is my last mission" and "He's 2 weeks away from retirement" as indicators that a character is going to die. And if you've been with this channel long enough, you'll know I've brought this up because the movie will chicken out in a way that makes very little sense, but we'll get to that. The family possessing the B plot, that leaves the main group with the A plot. The fact they jumped off the boat with all their supplies for no particular reason is very important because it gives us the first of several Ninja Dinosaur events. There's Dino Bait number 1 there, pointlessly trying to haul a supply bag that is much bigger than she is because she's a plank. And oh look, what's that behind her? That sure does look like a bit of a nasty saurus to me. Oh, but look, it goes behind the supply stash, and as everybody knows, if it's hidden from the camera, it is completely invisible to everyone in the movie. Oh snap, sneak attack! This is one of those very rare events in film, death by blocking. If only the camera had been angled differently, everyone would have seen and heard that giant thing coming. But as the audience couldn't see it, nobody in the movie could either. How tragic! We hadn't even got to know her yet. It's what makes her death so very, very sad. Meanwhile, with the fam.
When an old person buys a bed, do you think before they buy it, they look at it and they go, "Oh wow, man, this is my deathbed"? Because I'm thinking that right now.
Anyway.
This island was a laboratory of sorts. They conducted experimental work here. What kind of experiments? Crossbreeding of species. The theme park owners were just responding to what the audience wanted. They were tired of looking at the same old thing.
5 times? Also, hey, not for nothing, but don't you think that maybe, just maybe, it might be worth getting FDA approval for this new heart disease medication? Because, you know, hybrids, genetic experiments, crossbreeding, that could have some pretty nasty side effects if people just started injecting their blood straight into their veins. Not that anyone would suggest such an absurd plan. I'm just throwing it out there, you know, just in case anyone was thinking it. Just something to consider.
Genetically altered freaks?
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to do that in the middle of a theme park, do you?
But consumers want them bigger, louder, more teeth. The Indominus Rex, our first genetically modified hybrid.
Ideally, you don't try weird genetic shit at all.
My dude, what do you think dinosaurs are?
Well, that's inhuman. Why not just euthanize them?
Now, this is where I tell you it's a sin to kill a dinosaur.
Gee, the lack of humility.
Evil businessman says it made more financial sense to write these dinosaurs off as R&D costs than it would have done to kill them, and this upsets Moral Science Man, who is a communist. Black Widow tells them to all stop their yapping and get back on mission because nothing has changed if you don't count the tragic deaths of 2 of their teammates, the loss of a boat, the loss of an entire family, and the loss of all their supplies.
We have no weapons.
We never did. I had a few toys. Let's just get what we need and get out.
You do realize that guns are very effective against dinosaurs, right? It's one of the very many reasons. Oh, wait, fuck it. I'm sure I've heard this point before.
They would be shit in a war.
We specifically know weapons are good against dinosaurs because John Hammond didn't want them on his island because they could hurt dinosaurs. Gay Hunter Man in The Lost World knocks out a T-Rex with a couple of sleep darts. Kirby in Jurassic Park 3 annoys a Spinosaur with a little flare gun. I'm pretty sure a minigun takes out a few pterosaurs in Jurassic World before H-1B Hammond crashes his helicopter. Blue gets shot and badly injured in Fallen Kingdom. In Jurassic World Dominion? Actually, no, you know what? I don't care that much.
I hired an exfil team to monitor our boat's radio frequency. So if we go silent for 24 hours, we'll do a flyby at exactly sunset on the second night.
Well, that's tomorrow.
By the rules of this movie, the helicopter is off camera and so the government can't see it with all those patrols they don't have, but this does, unfortunately, make the entire setup even more broken, since if a helicopter can fly in to the village on the island, the helicopter could have flown the team to the village to set up a base. It could have brought more supplies, it could have rescued the family, it could have brought more team members, it could have helped them establish a camp, it could have scouted the island for the dinosaurs. Fuck they could probably have done their entire mission from the sky. They didn't even need to set foot here. I know this movie is kind of doing the Jurassic Park 3 formula in that it is an inconsequential romp through Dino Land, which doesn't really need to exist but aims to be inoffensive. But at least Jurassic Park 3 gave us a reason they all landed on the island, even if it was very silly for Alan Grant to go on that mission without so much as looking up Kirby Enterprises. Anyway, that's the end game set up for us. Get to the village by this time, helicopter will arrive at this time, helicopter will stay for set amount of time, helicopter will pick you up if it sees you.
Gotta find high ground before the sun goes down.
Jesus Christ, I thought the dinosaurs were bad enough, but apparently there's an Anakin on this island too. God, I hope he doesn't find that youngling. And off we go. Adventure time, aren't you excited? I'm excited. Halfway in and the movie's kind of maybe possibly getting started. I mean, I know I don't sound excited, but that's just because my voice has depression. Unusually for a movie, the bit where it technically gets going is also the bit where nothing very interesting occurs. This is a function of a very simple plot and the complete absence of characters. Jurassic Park 3 was faced with a similar challenge. That movie essentially goes, arrive at island, escape some dinosaurs, find a kid, leave the island. It was at its weakest when it tried to force things to happen. The whole talking raptor egg retrieval bit was horribly stapled on, but it feels significantly richer than Afterbirth because, while nothing much was happening, its characters were evolving. Alan Grant being a mentor, his pupil disappoints him and has to redeem himself with a self-sacrificial act, thereby becoming more like his teacher. The Kirbys were going from broken and distant to remembering what they used to see in each other, while finding new reserves of courage and confidence. Most people arriving on that island are liars, including the tertiary characters. There is no Kirby Enterprises. That poor chap who gets used as bait by the Raptors was not private security. The tough guy was not so tough when faced by a Spinosaurus. Alan Grant was not as immune to the beauty of these dinosaurs as he let on. Through trials and adversity, the truth emerges, if you live long enough. Very simple plots can sometimes be exactly what you need to let your characters shine, and if they do shine, it can excuse some of the sillier action scenes, because they all have a point, and that point is character growth. Absent characters though, your simple and silly plot just becomes exhaustingly dull. For example, the pointless fam follows some pipes toward the village because, remember following pipes?
Maybe there's a radio?
Great. We used that to get the guy who tried to kill me.
He didn't, though. He didn't try to kill you. He just maybe didn't do much to stop you killing yourself. Ugh, women. Who'd live with him? The A-team, meanwhile, follows a river toward a valley to get their second sample.
Be careful where you step. Something just moved past my leg.
Nobody reacts to this. They just keep walking and talking about nothing. Black Widow asks evil businessman why he didn't try to stop older sister pushing herself off the boat. Black Widow wasn't in that scene. She has no reason to suspect him of anything, but the movie needs to put doubts in her mind because it has no other way to portray him as evil.
I studied under Alan Grant as a postdoc.
Remember Alan Grant? I remember.
My dream is I die in a shallow sea and I'm buried quickly myself. It's the best chance of being fossilized that way.
Why though? So some future archaeologist can dig you up and say, hey, this skeleton here, I think this was a member of the species homosexual vaginus.
She screamed, I turned around, and then she was gone.
If I find out otherwise, though, we'll leave you here and you can rejoin the food chain.
I'm too smart to die.
Okay, calm down, Seto Kaiba.
Don't move a muscle or we'll shoot you with our invisible guns. I'm too rich to die.
This is just kind of how the dialogue is. People were paid to write it, and that is the strongest argument against capitalism out of all the arguments you will find in this movie. But oh no, wait a minute, it gets worse.
You know, intelligence is massively overrated as an adaptive trait.
Going by how much money this movie has made, I say we give intelligence a try before we go writing it off like that.
Dinosaurs, pretty dumb, right? and yet they survived for 167 million years.
Okay, but mammals have been around for 225 million years and we are technically them. If we're doing a dick measuring contest, I'm taking the furry one over the scaly one. Yeah, I'm sorry all you scalies in chat, but someone has to lose this game.
And we, Homo sapiens, only have about 200,000 years so far.
Sure, and look what we've accomplished in that time. We went from first flight to landing on the moon in under 70 years.
With our huge cranial cavities, we're so smart, we already have the capacity to annihilate ourselves.
People have been banging on about this kind of thing for about as long as we've been conscious. These days it's climate change. Before that it was nuclear weapons and holes in the ozone layer. Before that it was global warming. Before that it was global cooling. Paul Ehrlich in his ludicrous book The Population Bomb predicted mass worldwide famine in the 1970s. All these things are good old-fashioned end times mythology with a pseudo-scientific glass. The Gnostic impulse to see some deep spiritual sin in everything involving humans is basically as old as humans. It's a bit absurd to be lectured by this fucking moron in a Jurassic movie, given some of Michael Crichton's most interesting talks and lectures were making the case against this sort of misanthropic nonsense.
Hold on, don't we rule the Earth? We gotta be doing something, right? We don't rule the Earth. We just think we do. When the Earth gets tired of us, believe me, it will shake us off like a summer cold.
Of all species that have existed on Earth, 99.9% of them are now extinct.
Oh fuck, this deserves its own section. We'll come back to it later. Over with the B-Team, younger sister stumbles upon this film's Grogu. Every movie has to have a Grogu. This one is called the Mosasaurus, and it does absolutely nothing, so I will not be mentioning it again.
Let's do this. Let's do this. It's like going that way, though.
Meanwhile, with the that really is it. This is what the family plot bit is. It's just like a bit, and then we're off again. Meanwhile, with the A-Team, evil businessman discovers the plot copter. The film wants us to think that only he has seen it, and that it came as a surprise to him, and that he walked under it by accident. And no, he fucking didn't. The plotcopter is here so that evil businessman can press X to frob it and receive the plot pistol as a reward. Thank goodness evil businessman isn't actually evil, otherwise he could do some pretty mean things with that pistol. Meanwhile, with the B-Team, it is now nighttime.
No, I was wrong about you.
We know.
She sees who you are.
When she sees that he doesn't wear a shirt.
Other people may talk shit about us, but we don't have to do the job for them. Otherwise it becomes true.
Most porn stars have throats deeper than this conversation. Remember sleeping in the tree? Well, this one's worse because they're sleeping on the floor against the tree, and this means they should really all be eaten. Douche boyfriend goes to take a piss.
Well, I gotta take a piss.
I just said that, but fine. You said it with an open shirt. I guess that means you win. While taking a piss, he is ambushed by a raptor. Oh boy, golly gosh, remember the raptors? They're so cool. So you're telling me that the Spinosaurus will work with a mosasaur to hunt, but the highly intelligent, highly social, collaborative flying raptors won't work with the highly intelligent, highly social and collaborative normal raptors from which they were derived. Fine, whatever. Then the A-Team goes into the long grass. Oh god, please, go into the long grass, let them get eaten. Black Widow advances slowly through the grass. It is a very tense scene. Please let them be eaten. Him first, preferably, and slowly. Oh no, the InGen scientists have created a hentai dactyl. Oh, no, fuck it, no, it's not. It's just another ninjasaur. I'm sorry. You're standing in long grass. The grass is maybe 5 feet high. I think this is supposed to be the Argentinosaurus? I know. The naming conventions, they produce unreliable results, though it does imply the existence of an Alabamasaurus that drinks heavily and beats its wife. The Argentinosaurus could reach up to 65 feet high. You cannot hide a Titanosaurus in long grass, you stupid fucking movie. Anyway, remember the Brachiosaur? I remember. We've always got to have a Brachiosaurus ripoff scene. It always has to be bigger. The scene always has to be longer.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
Black Widow shoots the dart into it while Moral Science Man is standing underneath it trying to cop a feel. This is possible because the film thinks herbivore equals good people. It is entirely unaware that more than 20 people are killed by cows each year in the United States alone. There you are dropping bombs on Iranians when it's the cows you should be worried about. Trust me, I should know. I live in the countryside. It's like being embedded with Al-Qaeda, fuck me. What have you done to me, movie? What have I become? Retrieving the second sample is procedurally important, but what is more important is that we continue to appreciate how beautiful the Titanosaurs are. How big is this fucking island? I quote again from the book. Well, Wu said, we have some very big herbivores on this island. We have specifically tried not to breed the biggest sauropods, but even so, we've got several animals in excess of 30 tons walking around out there, and many others in the 5 to 10 ton area. That gives us 2 problems. One is feeding them, and in fact, we must import food to the island every 2 weeks. There is no way an island this small can support these animals for any time. End quote. As another little book anecdote, Jurassic Park makes good use of seemingly tedious things like graphs and tables to tell its story. It's one of Crichton's great gifts. It helps make the fictional seem more real and more believable. He presents it as real and believable. The table recording the dinosaur population on Isla Nublar is listed 3 times. First to show the island's expected population, setting up the big reveal and Ian Malcolm's first vindication, which is the real population. And it is used a third and final time to drive home the point about how unnatural an environment Jurassic Park is. The last table is presented after the fences have been down and the island offline for just a day and a half, but the population of herbivores declines during that time, and the population of smaller predators, particularly the raptors and the Procompsognathids, increases because nature's idea of a balanced population is very different to a human's idea of what a balanced population should be. In this movie, we're supposed to believe that this island has been abandoned and completely shut off with no population controls for almost 2 decades. The island doesn't just have natural predators, it has genetic Freakosaurus monsters roaming around. The Retardosaurus is easily big enough to prey on fully grown Titanosaurs. Not only could this island not support this number of large herbivores, but the predation rate on eggs and on their young and even on some of their fully grown members would restrain the population size anyway. Now, you don't have to explain all of this in your movie, but you can show the consequences in your movie. You can at least make it look like you've accounted for it. Even The Lost World tried to bake population distributions into its narrative.
The carnivores are isolated in the interior of the islands.
Jurassic Park, the movie, showed much of what the book took time to set up and explain, and that gave it a degree of realism that none of the World movies have ever achieved.
I don't see that every day.
No, but the problem is we see it every fucking movie, and it always pales in comparison to the original, which just works better and looks better today than any of these pale imitations. The Brachiosaurus scene has the masterful score, it has the big reveal, it has the dramatic contrast with everything we've seen leading up to it, but it has another thing going for it as well. It is not just about the dinosaur. All that together is why these movies repeatedly try to replicate the scene. None of them understand the first thing about why and how it works. If we're also bored of dinosaurs, why is the Brachiosaurus scene still so good that we have to copy it every few years? 2 out of the 3 samples now collected, we somehow find ourselves in the last third of the movie. it manages to feel both long and perfunctory, which it's an achievement of a kind. Next on the A-Team shopping list is the Flying Saurus. But for the sake of filling time, we first have to jump away to the B-Team, who are busy ripping off the raft sequence from the book.
Hey, you talk?
I'm taking her home with me.
I think a thing is supposed to have occurred. I think we were supposed to notice that younger sister hasn't talked since they got to the island, and we were supposed to read this as trauma, which has now been cured by the Merchosaurus. So now she talks again. I'm not 100% sure though, because this genuinely hasn't presented as a plot point. There haven't been any scenes where she was expected to speak but didn't. Her silence actually makes her the most tolerable character in this entire film. She speaks precisely as often as she needs to, which is to say, never. I don't know if maybe a scene was cut, but I also don't care. The fam tumbles down a hill. They find the river, which has a hut on the other side, and inside the hut is a raft.
I see a boat. You can't walk.
But he's walked all the way here. Fair enough if the boat's easy to grab, but if it's gonna be dangerous, I think you could probably just hobble the rest of the way. Oh my goodness, the Dilophosaurus is in the movie. Remember the... Oh, well, I hope you got paid for that cameo. Oh goodness, golly gosh, it's a T-Rex. Change of plans, guys. We don't need the raft. It is safer if we just very quietly sneak away. No, you should definitely leave the raft and sneak away. I said leave the raft and sneak away, you fucking moron. What are you doing, dragging it out right in front of the T-Rex? No, don't inflate it in front of the T-Rex. It's loud and it's bright and it's yellow and you've got no way of escaping. I'm sorry, fuck off. The T-Rex does not have a cloaking device. It's not the... Oh god, what the fuck was it called? It's not the... not the Indoraptor, the other one. From Jurassic... Why can't I remember what that stupid thing is called? It's not the Indominus Rex. There you go, that was worth it. I get that the camera can't see it, though that makes no sense either. Look there behind the raft. The Rex is clearly getting up, so naturally its back gets higher. But then the word ninja appears in the script, so it inexplicably shrinks. But even accepting that the camera can't see it, most of the fam is on the other bank of the river. They can still see it. Hey Rexy, what are you doing over there? Is this maybe because the fam needs time to pile into the raft and the writers didn't account for that, so they've had you walk in the wrong direction? Oh, and before anyone in the comments says, well, actually, there's evidence that the T-Rex was an ambushed predator. That is how you sound. That does not accord with movie continuity, and it does not apply to this situation. The Rex's footsteps have given us one of the most iconic tension-building scenes in the original film, and so in all of film. And this Rex isn't going to ambush them. It's going to very publicly and very incompetently attack them in the open. Even if it were going to ambush them, being an ambush predator does not give it the power to disappear. Anyway, then it gets worse. The fam boards the raft. The Rex figures it tried being nice, but they really are too stupid to live, and so it comes after them. Oh dear, you might be thinking, this can't end well. There's no way they can escape a full-grown T-Rex on an inflatable dinghy. But that is where you're wrong. Your fatal mistake is that the T-Rex is in this movie, meaning it has devolved considerably since the 1990s, and it is now so inept it could probably get the job as a screenwriter. Remember how it fucked up the cars in Jurassic Park? Remember how easily it punctured the tires and even ripped them off the vehicles and we heard the air going out of them to make sure we knew they were punctured? Well, that was then. This is now. Now, the T-Rex can't so much as puncture a fucking dinghy. Nor can this once apex predator fish. Nor can it wade at more than 2 miles an hour. Nor can it navigate even mildly difficult terrain. And so the fam escapes, and that is the last we'll see of old Rexy in this film. Oh, fuck off. Now, much of this was stolen from the book, and controversially, I don't hold the book's raft sequence in especially high regard. There are some strong moments in the overall thing, don't get me wrong, they mostly fall later in the sequence, but this movie has basically copied the worst bits from the beginning of the sequence, from the stupid decision to get the raft in the first place, to the Rex's baffling inability to catch a tired old man and some idiot children stranded in the middle of a lake. More importantly, the film hasn't carried over the Rex's broader role in the story. It serves as the primary antagonist in Grant's side of Jurassic Park for reasons of drama more than sense, because Crichton understood that subplots tend to work best when they function as independent stories with all the constituent parts of independent stories, including antagonism, twists, turns, setbacks, character development, and all the rest. Crichton understood that an evolving threat is usually more effective than a series of disconnected bits. Grant and the kids do face interstitial foes, pterosaurs in the aviary, Dilophosaurs on the bank of the river, raptors in the tunnel back to the visitor center, at which point their story rejoins the others and the raptors take over as the primary antagonist of the overall story. But the Rex pursuing them all the way up the river makes it feel like more than a mere excuse to stick random dinosaurs in front of the reader. The Rex in the book is forced to abandon the chase because it can't get through the thick trees bordering the river, which works much better than having it be unable to step over some medium-sized rocks. We are more than 2/3 into this movie now, and we do not have an antagonist, either human or animal. It's probably the single biggest reason of lots of big reasons why everything feels narratively flat, and this island full of dinosaurs feels so empty. The Mutadons have had a single mention in my script since the prologue scene because we've only seen them once, and for about 5 seconds. InGen's Pride and Joy, the Retardosaurus, hasn't had a single mention because it just doesn't feature in the movie, despite it being logically the apex predator on this entire island. So yes, the movie's aversion to writing characters also extends to its animal characters. Over with the A-Team.
I saw the pterosaur circling a carved structure cut into a natural ledge.
Ah, must have been nice for you. Shame we missed it. Their plan is to abseil down and get the sample from a egg. And it's at this point that I remind the movie that man made these dinosaurs, and if you can harvest the samples from a dinosaur egg, you could have just made an egg at home, you dickless docus.
You're doing great.
Why are we not allowed to feel anything in this movie? Here, the film takes a very peculiar turn. The cliffside cave they enter has been carved to look like the mouth of a dinosaur.
What is this place? Some kind of ancient temple?
A good question for another movie, cause this ain't gonna get an answer. It's not even going to be mentioned again, leaving you wondering just what the hell the writers had in mind for it. I'm not even saying this is necessarily a bad thing. You could have a lot of fun with the idea that folktales and mythology, having so many common elements, dragons, huge serpents, well, they might be recollections of dinosaur-type creatures that survived in remote places far longer than the fossil record might suggest. Long gone species are occasionally rediscovered in the real world. We thought the coelacanth had been extinct for about 66 million years until one popped up randomly in 1938. In the Jurassic Park novel, the mysterious lizards attacking babies in remote Costa Rican villages at the beginning of the story are initially misidentified as unknown or thought extinct species driven out of the country's interior by deforestation. So yeah, there's lots of places you could take this beat. But this movie doesn't. It's just gonna drop them. We rock up in a cave with ancient dinosaur carvings like it's fucking Skull Island. Black Widow says, "Oh, is this some kind of ancient temple?" And that's it. It's never acknowledged again. So I guess we'll have to wait for the inevitable sequel. Jurassic World, Postpartum Depression. Or maybe the crossover event that all the most retarded people on Reddit have been waiting for. Jurassic World, Across the Monsterverse, you could call it. Oh, mind you, that is a lot of long words for the target audience. Moral Science Man, being completely disinterested by what this temple is, sticks a needle in an egg.
What would the alternative be? Handing the samples over to Parkogenics.
Look, I get that this is the only conversation in the entire movie, but now is really not the time for it.
We open source it. A bunch of people create the medicine. Nobody owns the patent, everyone has access, and tens of millions of lives are saved.
Jesus Christ. If you're the smart character, then intelligence really is an overrated trait. It's honestly as if nobody watched the original movie, which is funny because one of them allegedly helped write it. Michael Crichton was not ambivalent about the concepts of gene editing and bioscience. He made the case that they were, if anything, more dangerous than nuclear weapons. The whole point of Jurassic Park is that nobody was competent to wield the massive power conferred upon them by science. InGen's Dr. Wu was a brilliant man. Jurassic Park was made by brilliant men, and they could not control it. What do you imagine would happen if you open-sourced highly experimental mutant dinosaur blood with the aim of getting everyone in the world vaccinated against heart disease? Didn't this movie begin by telling us that disease had wiped out almost every dinosaur on the planet?
All of us, not some of us.
What are we gonna do, Rick? It's gonna be fine, Morty, relax. I whipped up an antidote. It's based on praying mantis DNA. Sometimes science is more art than science, Morty. A lot of people don't get that.
Honestly, fuck communists. First they gave us Chernobyl, and now they're trying to wipe us out with dinosaur goo and potent stupidity. Out on the cliff face, Dino Bait number 2 is hammering hooks into the wall for no particular reason, and this attracts the attention of the Quetzoclphohthsofigusg. So we get our next dumb action set piece. The Quetzalcoatl attacks the people in the cave. Dino Bait 2 activates his special ability and throws an axe that defies gravity. Then the Quetzal turns around and munches him. Oh, it's so tragic. Poor Dino Bait number 2. We hadn't even got to know him yet. That's what makes it so very... Oh, fuck it, who cares? Moral Science Man almost falls out of the temple, but then he gets a quick Indiana Jones ripoff scene. Then he falls off the cliff, and he honestly, unironically, no word of a lie, he Homer Simpsons his way to safety. In case you weren't annoyed enough by this scene, Black Widow rappels down after him. That's fair enough. But not quite Blade and evil businessman, they take the stairs. You see, they spotted some stairs on the top of the cliff before the abseiling sequence began. Then they just decided to neither mention nor explore those stairs, leaving their colleagues with a much more dangerous and difficult job than was required. The stairs go all the way down the cliff, and so presumably they go through the temple, because how else would the ancients be able to access it? And that means that this entire thing was for nothing. Everybody could have walked. Dino Bait 2 didn't need to be on the outside of the cliff. He could still be alive, whoever he is. Oh, at least we've got what we needed. God, I just want to get off this stupid island and never think about any of it ever again. I'd really love to be a fan of this movie because they never thought about it in the first place. As the sun sets, the B-team paddle their raft into InGen Village. Remember 10,000 volts? I remember. Here we survey the damage done by that fucking Snickers wrapper, Jesus Christ. The entire place is an abandoned wreck. InGen made no attempts to recover the island despite the huge dollar value attached to it, and the governments of all the surrounding nations simply ignored the fact that an island full of mutant flying raptors was sitting on their doorstep for more than a decade. InGen dropped napalm on Isla Nublar in the book because the animals kept escaping, and they didn't even have wings. For reasons of convenience, the A-team arrive at the village at pretty much the same time as the fam, so they all reunite. Yay! I love it when people who have no relationship whatsoever get their happy reunion. Older sister, though, well, she remains very salty that she pushed herself out of a moving boat, and so she's looking for someone to blame.
You stopped me calling for help! You looked right at me and you let me fall!
The problem with youth today is that they just never take responsibility for their own actions.
She's lying.
Yeah, if she's lying, then why do you have a gun?
Because she's hysterical.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So what's happened here is that evil businessman discovered the plotcopter. The plotcopter gave him the plot pistol. He did not use the plot pistol when he was attacked by an actual Quetzoclphohthsofigusg. Nobody noticed him carrying the plot pistol across the whole island, and now he's simply holding it. And this makes him bad people because guns, like money, are evil. Listen, I'm more concerned with why you don't have a gun, you daft cow. Evil businessman is just being responsible. He's trying to cure heart disease. Older sister is being hysterical.
Why don't I take that? I'll keep it safe with me.
I'm still waiting for him to do something wrong. This is normally the bit in the movie where an evil character shoots a good character or reveals that they secretly wanted the McMuffin for sinister, evil reasons.
Calm down and give me the cure for heart disease so I can keep it safe.
That ain't a sinister, evil reason. That is, if anything, a really, really good reason.
Now we're all just gonna relax and wait here for the helicopter to arrive.
I think it's just another John Walker situation is what it is. This movie's writers are so stupid and their worldview is so immoral that their villain is the most sensible hero in the story. But then, oh dear, strange noises in the darkness.
It's the generator.
The generator sounds angry.
Obviously, we can't take this seriously because it's only supposed to be tense and horrifying.
Maybe this place is deserted in the daytime,
But not so deserted at night.
What fucking difference does that make? You haven't been here in the daytime. It could be just as non-deserted 24/7 as much as you know. Either way, you have a helicopter. You could have checked. Wait, it was the generator? Because, you know, the last scene 2 seconds ago kind of implied that it wasn't. Fuck knows what it's been running on these last 17 years or however long it's been. Maybe it's got some Riri Williams solar panels. She's evil enough to work for InGen. Retards on wings! The group runs away in different directions so they can all die separately, we hope. And the vile murder pigeons just roar at them a bit. We saw one ambush a raptor earlier in the movie. It's the only other time we've seen them in the movie, but no. Now they have to land and walk around doing nothing, meaning we gave them wings for absolutely no reason. Why weren't these just normal fucking raptors? Moral Science Man and Not Quite Blade find their way into the laboratory from the beginning of the movie. You'd better watch out for Snickers. That brand has a higher kill count than any of the dinosaurs in this movie. Black Widow and Evil Businessman hide under some cars because we're ripping off the first Jurassic World already. And the fam, they hide in a shop. How are you missing it? That thing's fucking huge. One of the Raptards finds its way into the shop through the roof. And oh, this sure does look familiar. Yeah, this shit looks really familiar. Oh my gee golly god, remember the kitchen scene? Yeah, I mean, this movie hasn't earned it at all. It's actually kind of offensive. The fam escapes through a convenient floor vent and they find themselves in some ducts.
Hey, tunnel system goes under the whole island.
That's another very useful thing you could have traversed instead of traipsing around topside this entire movie, getting yourselves eaten. Did nobody bother to fetch the blueprints before putting this mission together? Evil Businessman works for a mega rich evil corporation. They could probably afford to buy the island.
The tunnel leads to the ocean. There's a boat.
Oh, so you're just making it worse. Stop it. Then they all hear the helicopter. And look, there it is! Rescue has arrived! But oh no, there's also a very large shape moving in the fog. A monster is outside. It's fine though, because it's on the ground and it moves real slow and it can't fly. I think I'd be more concerned about the Raptards. If they ever learn to use those wings of theirs, they'd be pretty much unstoppable. Maybe this'll be the scene where that gets a payoff. Oh no, never mind. The writers have decided that the best use for flying Raptards is to put them in confined spaces. So they head off to the tunnels with the fam, and Black Widow follows them. Up above ground, Moral Science Man frantically searches for any Jurassic tropes we haven't yet stolen, and he suddenly remembers. Flares! Flares are a Jurassic trope. He uses a flare to get the helicopter's attention, and it, yeah? Even the Jurassic Park wiki acknowledges how broken this monster is. And I quote, "Although the Distortus Rex is officially stated to be 14.5 meters or 47.57 feet long, its scale varies throughout its sequences, at times appearing much larger than it is. Maybe its mutation lets it change size rapidly between shots. I think the writers have earned this charitable interpretation." That does for the helicopter though, so now they have no choice but to get to the boat that I guess none of the InGen scientists tried to use when they were escaping the facility. Everybody goes into the tunnels, and that's where the Raptards are.
But what if the boat doesn't work?
I'm not gonna let you get hurt, okay?
Shut up, you're not a character. They crawl through the tunnels and they get trapped by a grate. They have the Raptards behind them, the Retardosaurus is in front of them. Younger sister sneaks through the grate and the Retardosaurus earns its name and ignores her. She pulls the big lever. Obviously, the lever to open the grates for the access tunnels is on the other side of a locked gate. It's how access works. The grate opens, but the Retardosaurus has spotted it. Oh no! However, while all this nonsense has been occurring, evil businessman has found himself a car that still works after all these years. It has no doors and it has no roof because it has been specifically designed to be vulnerable on an island made of dinosaurs. And it's not allowed to move without alarms going off just to make it that bit less appropriate for its setting. Evil businessman rips off Denny's fucking Denise Nedry. She'll be in the next movie. She's gonna be like, she'll come back as the villain in Jurassic World 5 and it'll be like, oh yeah, I am the niece of Dennis Nedry. My name is Denise Nedry, and I need to kill dinosaurs because they killed my uncle. Also, fuck it. Listen, I'm a professional writer. Trust me, it'll work. He rips off Dennis Nedry's escape. Remember the docks? I remember. And he drives right into the massive Retardosaurus Rex and it eats him. The movie seems to think this is some sort of cosmic justice, even though he's holding on to the cure for heart disease to the bitter end. This is probably the second most heroic sacrifice after Eddie in The Lost World. Although, come to think of it, it might even be more heroic. Thanks to evil businessman, the biggest global killer will be cured. He deserved so much better than this movie. Speaking of sacrifices, I suspect that at one stage in production, this was going to be the end of Not Quite Blade as well. We did the setup beat, the dead kid. We did the foreshadowing beat. I'm not going to die in this forest. We did the moral willingness beat. I'm not going to let anything happen to you, kid. And now he takes a flare and he runs off to distract the Retardosaurus so everyone else can escape. Even the music seems to think this is the moment he dies. This way! He tragically and heroically takes his flare into a lake and he swims, leading the Retardosaurus away. He gets trapped. It all looks like it's over. It's very sad. We had just about started to maybe think about contemplating getting to know him. But then one of two things occurred. Either the special ed class they brought in for the test screening reported that they did not like him dying actually, or the actor expressed a willingness to come back for a sequel. So even though we last saw him cornered by the Retardosaurus, we then cut back and the Retardosaurus is approaching the boat again, and they push off just in time. Those flying Raptards, they're just gone. They're not in the movie anymore. I don't know why. The boat sails away. But then they see another flare. Not Quite Blade found a second one in the middle of the jungle while trapped by the Retardosaurus. So the boat turns around, and this is fine because even though the Retardosaurus was attracted by a flare 10 seconds ago, it is also now out of the movie, and I also don't know why. So the boat picks up Not Quite Blade. Hooray, he survived. On the boat, Black Widow asks what they should do with the dinosaur samples.
Who do we give it to?
You decide.
We'll give it to everyone.
Oh, who saw that coming? This sets us up for human dinosaur hybrids in the next of these appalling films. They see some dolphins swimming because seeing animals in the last shot of a Jurassic movie is a trope now. It's not designed to tell you anything at all. It's not like seeing the birds at the end of the original film was supposed to tell you something about evolution and Alan Grant's attitude toward it, both as a concept and in his own character. It's not supposed to tell you that he'd found a new love in, respect for, and wonder at the real world. It's not to give you the sense that everything is actually just as it should be and that nature is best in control of nature rather than humans. Nope, it's just birds. He just sees some birds. It looks pretty, and so now we see dolphins, and that looks pretty too. They sail off into the sunset. The end. Now this is normally the part of the video where the conclusion lives. The conclusion will typically cover the 4 essential ingredients in storytelling: plot, character, world building, and theme. But if there is a common theme to this summer's, even this year's biggest movie releases, Superman, Jurassic World, Fantastic Four, Minecraft, and so on, it's that they leave you with almost nothing to say because they say almost nothing. Part of the reason for including that fairly long introductory section earlier in this video was to show how much could be said about Jurassic World's progenitor. The thought, care, and attention that went into Jurassic Park, both the book and the movie, provides a culturally enriching story, even if, as argued, we seem to have forgotten its biggest lesson. We've already covered what passes for the plot of Jurassic World Afterbirth. It is, in one reading, less offensive than its immediate predecessor, Jurassic World Dominion, but in another reading, it is also less interesting, since Afterbirth doesn't even try to accomplish whatever drug-addled fever dream inspiration gave rise to Dominion. Dominion is funnier than Afterbirth because, in trying harder to do whatever it was trying to do, it failed more sublimely. I had much more fun with Dominion, which really is the rise of Skywalker of the Jurassic franchise. And if we're doomed to get bad and nonsensical plot either way, I honestly think I'd have preferred the height of absurdity to the depths of nothingness given us by Afterbirth. The world building in this movie is pretty much broken, but then it has been for a long time in the world movies. Afterbirth was dissatisfied with the living in harmony with nature conclusion of Dominion, so it reversed over it harder than Caitlyn Jenner on a bad day.
Buckle up, buckaroo!
But even accepting the movie was right to do that, it was unable to draw anything sensible on its blank slate. The timelines in the prologue do not add up with what we know about the original Jurassic World. Dinosaurs do not suddenly decide they can't breathe our atmosphere after decades of doing that just fine. Oxygen is not concentrated on specific islands. If the equator as a whole has more oxygen than the rest of the world, then dinosaurs should still be living all around the world, because that's what the equator does. Foreign governments, knowing the dangers of dinosaurs, would not be content to leave an island with mutant flying raptors unprotected. The cure for heart disease requiring dinosaurs with the biggest hearts does not entail that you pick the biggest dinosaurs in smaller subcategories of dinosaur rather than that massive one out there in the road. Other companies recognizing the value in these animals would not leave the island undisturbed. You cannot put a T-Rex in an inner city zoo. People would not get bored of dinosaurs. On character, there is even less to say. We've already covered Michael Crichton's own weaknesses in this area. In Jurassic Park, the book, there is no budding romance between Grant and Sattler. Grant's wife is deceased, a fact which is included but never mentioned again. Sattler is there only to provide occasional exposition in the realm of paleobotany, and apparently she's attractive.
Humid Dallas air drifted through the open door. Ellie said, "Isn't it a little warm for black?" "You're extremely pretty, Dr. Sattler," he said. "I could look at your legs all day."
Because there's no budding romance, there is no potential love triangle, and Ian Malcolm's flirtation has no impact on Grant. Nor does it lead anywhere by the end, because Ian Malcolm is mortally wounded by the Tyrannosaurus and spends the rest of the novel from that point expositing through morphine haze until he dies. The kids in the book do not represent anything to Alan Grant. They are not a teaching experience. They do not enable him to go from one character deficiency to a fully rounded man now capable of family life, and so a relationship with Sattler. The book was originally to be told entirely from the kids' perspective, but not for any artistic reason. Crichton figured at that time that more kids would be interested in a story with kid protagonists, an idea he sensibly dropped because kids are annoying, and kids written by Crichton doubly so. The kids remain in the story to provide an adventure B plot to a science-based intrigue-style A plot. John Hammond's complexities in the book are principally negative. He doesn't have Spielberg's childlike enthusiasm. He is instead an old, slightly tyrannical businessman who does not properly appreciate his subordinates. A fact that allows Dr. Wu to get a bit more depth than he gets in the movie. Wu wants to make bigger, better, sexier dinosaurs to leave his mark on the field, and Hammond is deaf to his ambitions, which causes Wu great frustration. This idea didn't have much to do with anything else in the book, but it does resurface in later Jurassic World movies, which use Wu as a cartoonishly evil villain until his redemption in Dominion because of Clone Girl's cancer-ridden mega-genius mother, whom he loves or whatever the fuck. Oh, we've done that. That's an old video. Go watch that if you want to destroy whatever's left of your brain. So, the character work in Afterbirth is not a massive downgrade when compared to the book, but it is a massive downgrade when compared to Spielberg's Jurassic Park. In that movie, the family theme runs throughout. Typically of Spielberg in that era, it is a movie about family before it is a movie about anything else. The delta between Grant and Sattler's first and final scenes shows the journey Grant in particular has been on for the duration.
You want to have one of those?
I don't want that kid, but a breed of child, Dr. Grant.
Our attractions will drive kids out of their minds.
What are those?
Small versions of adults, honey.
She said I should ride with you because it'd be good for you.
Now loading.
Hey! He's at it!
But that's not what I'm gonna do.
What are you and Ellie gonna do now if you don't have to pick up dinosaur bones anymore?
Guess we'll just have to evolve too. I'll stay awake
All night?
all night.
What is there to say about the Afterbirth characters, though? Well, not quite Blade. He had a kid, and that kid died, so he saves the kids at the end. That's a strong idea on paper, but it is practically invisible on the screen because the movie doesn't make it dynamic. This is because saving the kids at the end is something damned near any character should do and would do. It isn't bespoke to Not Quite Blade. It isn't his unique gift. Black Widow shows care for the family group earlier in the movie, and it's perfectly reasonable to suppose that, were Not Quite Blade not quite in the movie, she would have done exactly what he did. The idea I think the movie was trying to get across is that Not Quite Blade's personal tragedy made him extra motivated to save the kids, but this is harder to surface when he's part of a large group of people who share variations on the same motive. More substantive depictions of this particular trope will often introduce a degree of hostility between the bereaved and a stranger's children, because this tells us something about how that bereavement affected the character. Think Hopper in Stranger Things, who in season 2 struggles in the father's role with Elle because it reminds him too much of what he perceives as his greatest failure, the death of his own daughter. But Afterbirth couldn't give us any such thing, because Not Quite Blade only shares about 2 minutes of screen time with the kids, who, in the end, are supposed to be his greatest motive. The movie would have been better off contriving a way for Not Quite Blade to end up in the kids' storyline, and the kids' dad to end up in Black Widow's half of the movie. That would give Not Quite Blade a chance to grow back into the father's role while giving the real father a chance to worry. Black Widow herself has a personal tragedy. Her mum died and she missed the funeral because she was too busy getting money. Her bereavement kind of provides her motive to sign up for the mission, but it doesn't really inform her characterization at any point because she doesn't have that. It is there chiefly to establish that money is bad. Despite the huge amount of nothing going on in the movie, she doesn't get so much as a beat to reflect on loss. There is no mourning for those killed during this mission, even though the boat scene was supposed to tell us that she feels loss keenly. Just one single Dark Night of the Soul beat after the Dino-Bait characters die on the island could have been connected to this one important part of her backstory, could have caused her to reflect on her past mistakes, could have seen her blame herself for this new tragedy, because in pursuit of money she has once again earned tragedy. But nope, we don't get that either. We've already covered the total absence of stuff where the fam is concerned. Protective father and lazy douche boyfriend begin at odds but have overcome their differences before the halfway point in the movie, whereafter absolutely nothing happens on a character level to any of them. Daughter going off to university doesn't rediscover or redevelop the family bonds she might have believed she was leaving behind. She doesn't ascend to motherhood. Father doesn't change anything about how he views his children. Younger sister is solely there so she can carry the Mosasaurs around. The fam take up a sizable part of the runtime, but there's just no there. And for fuck's sake, the movie couldn't even be bothered to make its villain a villain. Evil businessman wants to cure heart disease, goes to the island to find the cure for heart disease, gets the cure for heart disease, and is killed trying to escape with the cure for heart disease. We learn nothing about him on a character level besides that, like us, he doesn't see why older sister should be in the movie. But his motives are pretty good, morally speaking, and he acts in accordance with them throughout. He doesn't lie, he doesn't conspire, he doesn't cause any reversals for our heroes. God damn it, he doesn't even betray them. He tells them exactly what he's after, he tells them exactly what the mission is, and that's it. That is the mission, that is what he's after. He doesn't reveal anything, nothing changes, god damn it. What Crichton lacked in the character department, he at least made up for with fascinating plots, world building, and themes. This movie barely has a plot, and its world building is utterly broken, so that really just leaves us with theme. And here, though there is perhaps a bit more to say, none of it is good. There are two strands in the movie that might loosely be called theme. These are money is bad and power to the people. Both of these come from Moral Science Man. I choose power to the people over the expected science is good framing because the movie does a good job showing why these two things contradict each other. It has precisely one thing to say about science, that science should be what my left-wing friends would call democratized, and this clause is subordinate to money is bad. It would also, if enacted, wipe out humanity. Money is bad has been a constant across the Jurassic World movies. These very expensive, ultra-cynical cash grab movies want you to know that, though they are taking your money and destroying your art, they're on your side. They are on your side against the man. The Indominus Rex in Jurassic World is an example of money is bad. It was made because people will pay more for spectacle, thus confirming that while the movie is on your side against the man, it also thinks you're an idiot. That ill-fated endeavor was also undone by the military-industrial complex, that sub-variant of money is bad that prompts villains to come up with insane plans like using velociraptors against the Taliban.
Imagine if we had these puppies in Tora Bora.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom's money is bad motif sees the dinosaurs that everybody abandoned on an active volcano because we're all bored of them extracted from the active volcano so they could be bought and sold at auction for ludicrously high prices because everyone is bored of dinosaurs. Jurassic World Dominion's money is bad is a reprisal of these earlier instances. More dinosaur auctions, more military-industrial complex, this time producing laser-guided velociraptors. And it also brings back a parody of the anti-corporate message in Crichton's Jurassic Park, as Lewis Dodgson's Biosyn creates the Big Valley Reserve, while also, and secretly, genetically engineering a plague of killer locusts so they could monopolize the grain market Park, it's the quintessential clown movie. Jurassic World Afterbirth ditches the military-industrial complex, and it ditches the spectacle equals profit angles because dinosaurs are boring instead. It attempts to retain the anti-corporate message, but accidentally winds up making a good case for the man. It's hard to present the man honestly trying to cure heart disease as villainous, and this is clear to anyone who spends less than 30 minutes a day on Reddit, which regards the concept of profit as original sin, even when it provides the motive to cure the world's biggest killers. These things, you see, can be invented and distributed by magic. Afterbirth perfectly distills this kind of moronic nonsense so popular among the online left and increasingly parts of the online right as well. The man trying to cure heart disease is evil because he wants to profit off that cure. To profit off that cure, he will jack up prices to ensure that nobody can afford the cure, which would make profit hard to come by. Therefore, power to the people. Open source the dinosaur blood. Let the masses pump it straight into their veins. I know we're on an island where terrible mutations have occurred, but I'm sure nothing can possibly go wrong with that. This theme can only exist if you accept that the movie operates in a universe where BreadTube is right. It contains all its own contradictions and it proceeds without regard for them because it hasn't spent 1 second thinking about them. And this is supposed to be its theme. Whence this dinosaur blood? Why does it exist in the first place? How were you able to harvest it now, millions of years after all natural dinosaurs died out? Well, that might have had something to do with a businessman pouring in tremendous amounts of money to create dinosaurs for a theme park, the investors of which backed it because they thought it would turn a profit. Oh god, Little Platoon again, justifying the existence of billionaires. So, the cure moral science man believes belongs to the people only exists in the first place because of the profit motive he believes is pure evil. If he means for the proletariat to inject themselves directly with dinosaur blood, his good intentions will probably wipe out the greater part of the human race. Communists are gonna communist, I guess. If, on the other hand, he means that other companies or governments or organizations will turn it into a cure, then A, the movie forgot to include that part, B, it's still only possible because the profit motive recreated dinosaurs, C, R&D will still be most effectively done for profit, D, manufacture and distribution will most effectively be done for profit, and E, the cure will only be made widely accessible by market forces in which profit is a motive. Nationalize those markets and you will inevitably have a black market in dinosaur goo, and then we'll all die. Like it or not, we are here, and this is all possible because the profit motive made it so. And these writers are propagandizing for the alternative in a movie that was made for profit. I should stress I don't mean this to be an attack on all left-wing or anti-capitalist types. I used to be one. I'm still friends with several. There are brilliant and interesting ideas to be had in these fields, but all the interesting ideas proceed from a baseline understanding of reality. They're not just ideological, they are also intellectual and scientific. They attempt to engage with reality and reshape it to what they consider to be morally desirable ends. The problem with movie messages like this one is the problem with the kind of audience that is receptive to them. They are not scientific, they are not intellectual, they do not engage with reality, they aren't even particularly ideological. They are just monkeys vocalizing an unsatisfied and narcissistic greed. And so, the art that is designed to preach their message has nothing to say because no thought has gone into it. It's simply parroting a base primate impulse. I want thing, you have thing, you shouldn't have thing, give me thing. For anyone who's never been on Reddit, I have just summarized it for you. Funnily enough, Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park actually has John Hammond explain the problems with this kind of approach. The shift from public goods like healthcare to public wants like entertainment is a response to the message this film puts across.
If you were going to start a bioengineering company, Henry, what would you do? Would you make products to help mankind? To fight illness and disease? Dear me, no. That's a terrible idea. A very poor use of new technology. Hammond shook his head sadly. Yet you'll remember, he said, the original genetic engineering companies like Genentech and Cetus were all started to make pharmaceuticals. New drugs for mankind. Noble, noble purpose. Unfortunately, drugs face all kinds of barriers. FDA testing alone takes 5 to 8 years, if you're lucky. Even worse, there are forces at work in the marketplace. Suppose you make a miracle drug for cancer or heart disease, as Genentech did. Suppose you now want to charge $1,000 or $2,000 a dose. You might imagine that is your privilege. After all, you invented the drug. You paid to develop and test it. You should be able to charge whatever you wish. But do you really think that the government will let you do that? No, Henry, they will not. Sick people aren't going to pay $1,000 a dose for needed medication. They won't be grateful, they'll be outraged. Blue Cross isn't going to pay it. They'll scream highway robbery. So something will happen. Your patent application will be denied, your permits will be delayed. Something will force you to see reason and to sell your drug at a lower cost. From a business standpoint, that makes helping mankind a very risky business. Personally, I would never help mankind.
Crichton puts the quote in the mouth of the book's villain, but the problem it identifies is real, and it explains the creation of fictional and real Jurassic Parks. Absent the profit motive, there is no incentive to invest. Where there's a risk profit will be curtailed or expropriated, it increases risk and makes investment less attractive. With less investment, there is less R&D. With less R&D, there are fewer new cures. Getting the balance of public and private interest wrong, say by adopting moral science man's preferred framework, does not democratize healthcare, it democratizes death. The money that might have gone to patent a new drug will instead go into another area, in this fictional example, dinosaur theme parks, where profits are greater and the risk of expropriation is less. For all its many, many, many faults, the American pharmaceutical industry is responsible for around 40% of the total market. It might be, probably is indeed, possible to create a better balance between profit and innovation, but Moral Science Man's solution doesn't do that. You won't get cheaper drugs, you'll get no drugs, but at least people will die equitably. So, to the extent Afterbirth occupies the same thematic grounds as its ancestor, it demonstrates no understanding of the issue and seemingly no interest in teaching anyone anything less fashionable than the faux communism of the internet. Both strands of the movie's theme do this. This movie in the Jurassic franchise contradicts Crichton's point with respect to both money is bad and power to the people, which leads us to that second strand.
We are witnessing the end of the scientific era. Science, like other outmoded systems, is destroying itself. As it gains in power, it proves itself incapable of handling the power. Because things are going very fast now. 50 years ago, everyone was gaga over the atomic bomb. That was power. No one could imagine anything more. Yet a bare decade after the bomb, we began to have genetic power. And genetic power is far more potent than atomic power. And it will be in everyone's hands. It will be in kits for backyard gardeners, experiments for school children, cheap labs for terrorists and dictators. And that will force everyone to ask the same question. What should I do with my power? Which is the very question science says it cannot answer. So what will happen? Ellie said. Malcolm shrugged. A change. What kind of change? All major changes are like death, he said. You can't see the other side until you were there. And he closed his eyes.
But conceivably, if there was some kind of a virus that interfered with photosynthesis in enough plants.
Which is the essential component to life.
Right. Everything's gone. The biosphere is essentially wiped out.
Yeah, it's possible.
Different kind of power.
And it's possible.
Oh, I don't know. I hope it's not possible. But there certainly are coming to be some examples in which things that were imagined to be very, very difficult in genetic technology are being discovered to be not necessarily so difficult. Bad things.
So back to my question. What's necessary for a civilized world to make sure that it makes wise decisions about science?
Okay. I have a weird answer, which is, why don't we all walk around naked? And it isn't really because there's a law about it or there's a regulation. We don't do it for lots of reasons, and we're trained not to do it. And there's all kinds of social pressures not to do it. And I think one important thing is the education of scientists themselves, in terms of having an intuition and an idea about what not to do. I mean, a very important change in my lifetime is I have heard scientists say, we were looking at this line of research and we decided not to follow it. It's too dangerous.
Here, Ian Malcolm begins, through a morphine haze, to envisage a world quite advanced from the early 90s, and still some way advanced from the 2020s. But if it seemed possible then, and Crichton does a good job making it so, then it seems more possible now. The relatively recent advent of CRISPR, a gene editing technology, has brought DIY genetic engineering from a distant to a near-term prospect, and it might have gotten more attention were we not currently obsessed with AI. Already, people have experimented with modifying themselves with CRISPR, most prominently Josiah Zayner, who used CRISPR on himself publicly in an experiment designed to grow his muscles. Similar biohacking experiments outside the confines of scientific laboratories occasionally make the news. Aaron Treywick, CEO of Ascendance Biomedical, dropped his pants on a live stream and injected himself with an untested experimental herpes vaccine. Colleagues at that company were similarly fond of self-experimentation, but less fond of not being paid, and the company collapsed after a staff revolt that saw Treywick lock himself in a lab. He was later found dead in a sensory deprivation tank, having apparently drowned after taking ketamine. These things are at the moment tragicomic, but harking back to Ian Malcolm, they are also power, and a particularly potent power at that. We spent decades fretting over the misuse of nuclear power, and Chernobyl is still invoked today by those who want strict limits in the spread and use of nuclear technology. As covered earlier, 50 people died in the event, and the long-term consequences were negligible. By contrast, some estimates place the worldwide death toll from COVID-19 at 7 million people, and we are still encouraged not to talk about its origin, despite all the evidence now suggesting that it arose in a lab as a product of gain-of-function research, which is a form of genetic engineering. Therefore, we are presented with three significant problems: the problem of exploitative business monopolies in healthcare, the problem of state regulation, and the problem of unregulated gene tech proliferation. Crichton himself spoke extensively on the first and second problems, particularly as they relate to gene patenting. He lobbied for a change in the law during the book tour for his novel Next in 2006, cautioning that highly profitable scientific developments were prompting biotech companies to patent genes themselves, which is about as effective a tool as you can get for creating a monopoly. At that time, it was perfectly legal to patent entire DNA sequences, as well as human genes. As of 2013, it was estimated that around 20% of all human genes were patented, usually by biotech companies, who argued correctly that this incentivized their investment in costly R&D. The Supreme Court ruled against this practice that same year in Association for Molecular Biology versus Myriad Genetics Incorporated. Its ruling aimed at a balance. Naturally occurring DNA and genes cannot be patented, synthetic forms can be. The hope was that this would reduce but still retain a significant incentive for R&D, while prohibiting companies locking away whole fields of research behind their patents. And so far, it's sort of done its job. It's a complicated field. We don't really have time for all of it here. But this ruling would probably cover InGen's proprietary genetics work with dinosaurs, so not only would Black Widow have given up all the evil money in Afterbirth, she would probably have then been sued to oblivion by whichever company bought that part of InGen after it went Chapter 11. Like all such compromises, it is a messy business that ensures ensures full employment for lawyers. But, like Money is Bad, Jurassic World Afterbirth's Power to the People theme fails to engage with the subject and arguably pushes for the worst of all possible worlds, which is the mass availability of experimental, untested, unregulated genetic technology. This is something Crichton explicitly warned against, not only in Jurassic Park, but also in Prey and in Next, and in several interviews. Trained and qualified scientists unleashed disasters in his books. Even in the Jurassic World movies, Biocin's plague of locusts escape Dodgson's control and have to be stopped before the planned ecological catastrophe turned into an unplanned ecological catastrophe. So now, imagine putting that power in the hands of anyone with a needle. And yeah, I'm saying that Jurassic World Dominion thought more about this than Jurassic World Afterbirth did. Jesus Christ. The next Jurassic movie really needs to begin with 3/4 of the human race being wiped out by pathogens from injecting dinosaur blood. But knowing this franchise, it will probably give us human-dinosaur hybrids instead. In short then, and to summarize, the plot is silly. There are no characters to speak of, the world building is non-existent, and the theme is both thoughtless and disastrous. The villain of the piece is the evil man who wanted to safely cure heart disease within a regulated environment. The heroes are the ones who would wipe out humanity to stop the rich being rich. Jurassic Park was a brilliant novel and a brilliant movie for a more civilized age. But that age is past. Jurassic World Rebirth is the movie of our age, and the more money it makes, the more I think we deserve it. If that doesn't make you despair, I suggest you go back and re-watch the original. Watch it closely, pay attention to it. See how brilliantly it was crafted and see how much it has to say. It doesn't look like we're getting another one of those anytime soon, so bring on the asteroid. Ta-ta.